All right, go ahead.
And welcome to another live stream edition. The big three. I should have shared or queued up the share of that Miami Heat photo that Nania edited. But glad to be joined by you guys. We're going to be doing some draft recap. I know we're 2-ish weeks late. It seems like there's been so much content out there, but obviously we want to get your guys' opinions overall in the draft class. I think it's pretty important to just not skip over the draft. So we're gonna get right into it. Sabo, what's up, man? I know you've been pretty busy, but how you doing?
I'm okay. How you fellas doing tonight?
I'm doing pretty good. I actually just this past weekend drove up to Syracuse to see Ben, who I do the podcast with, and we did a live episode, so that's pretty cool. But yeah, I'm really enjoying digging into this class. I really like this group, so it's been fun to dig into them.
You just couldn't resist tapping a little bit back into Quinn Williams today, Nania?
Yeah, I got on a little Quinn Williams kick today, just watching some film, and he's great. He's just so much fun to watch.
Did you
now imagine
yourselves, you and Blessington?
Yeah.
I don't know about that, but yeah, Quinn. And it's gonna be exciting to see him in a more of a penetrating role too. But a lot of exciting stuff coming. I just dropped a more article. Nania drops like 3 things a day. Sabo drops plenty of film. I know he's been busy with work and stuff like that, but I'm sure it's going to kick up as well with all of Sabo's stuff, who's dabbling back into the podcast game with recapping some of the Knicks stuff and the Rangers stuff. And I know Rangers fans are big fans of Tom Wilson. You're talking about that a little bit. But a ton of stuff coming to the website. Then you also have Sam Krinick. You have Andrew Golden. You have all those guys, so make sure to check them out as well. Robby Sabo, you're at Robby Sabo on Twitter, not really imaginative. And Michael Nania is at Michael_Nania.
I got the underscore. That makes it look more official.
It's fancy. It's woke.
Yeah.
Follow, and then you have Jets X Factor as well. Follow those for all the content we've been putting out. But Nania, something else I heard, which we're going to, well, not heard, you said it, but we're going to talk about really quickly with the schedule releases. You're thinking about going to Carolina, which is a pretty exciting game. So let's hit that quick. We're not going to spend too long on going through wins and losses for the schedule, because I'm pretty sure while we all probably do it, it is relatively dumb to do. Just like mock drafts, we do them, but we know they're probably pretty stupid. So what are your guys' overall thoughts on the schedule? Like, does anything stand out in terms of road trips, in terms of teams they're playing, in terms of the bye week, in terms of, matchups? Kind of just throw it all into one. Nani, will go with you first.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing to me is the the fact they only got the one primetime game. I mean, I didn't expect them to get too many. They'd won 2 games last year, but only the one primetime game, and it's not at home against the Colts. So, I thought they might get one, because there were some intriguing matchups with the Panthers, the Lawrence Wilson matchup with the Jaguars. So I thought maybe they'd get one, but only the one with the Colts. And then they do have the London game, which I guess isn't primetime, but it's a nationally televised game. But that stood out to me. Other than that, I don't have too many takeaways. We have known who they were going to play for months. So I feel like people just don't talk about the schedule until they actually know the order, but we already know the opponents. So I don't really have too much, just the lack of a primetime game. But, you got to earn that. You can't win 2 games and expect too many of those.
What about you, Sabo?
The one thing as a football team you want is an easy start. A soft start. And what is it? They play one playoff team in the first 7 games?
Yeah, 7, yeah.
Right?
And that one playoff team is the Titans, who have lost a lot on their team.
Yeah, Pats, we expect them to be a little better, but I don't expect them to be a juggernaut by any means, by any stretch. Falcons, Bengals, Panthers, Darnold, you might not want to see those narratives for Zach Wilson's first NFL game. But if you're Saleh and Douglas, you can't complain. All you want is good momentum, good vibes in the locker room to start a season. In football, early in the season, good teams could feel bad and it could affect the season, and the reverse could happen too. So considering the soft start, I think that's the best thing.
Yeah, that the first game is like such a high, like kind of like high risk, high reward, for lack of a better phrase. Like, people overreact to that game so damn much. And if they lose to Darnold and he plays well, which, to be completely honest, like, a lot of people are like fearful of that game. I'm not personally fearful of Darnold, to be completely honest. Then you hear the whole thing with Teddy Bridgewater coming out and saying they don't really practice red zone, which is a little bit concerning for Joe Brady as an offensive coach. But yeah, that game is high risk, high reward. I think Eagle said it, which, by the way, welcome or thank you for jumping in the chat. Eagle, Rusty, Swoles, Verge, and everybody else in there. Mikey Mouse, appreciate you guys tuning in. But them pushing the Jaguars-Jets game to week 16, I think it's a little bit of a mistake not putting that on prime time, at least like a Thursday night game. I'm surprised that wasn't on there. We haven't had a Sunday night game in about a decade, right? It's been a really long time. We've had some Monday night games against the Pats and stuff like that, but we haven't had a Sunday night game. That didn't happen. The early bye week, I heard some people having a little bit of an issue with that, but if you look at the schedule, after the bye week, I think they have more of a heavy home schedule after the start of the season. So I'm not too concerned with that. And then a lot of their games, the only other thing that really stood out to me was the fact that it's a relatively easier schedule. And then the other part of it is, I don't think they play 2 back-to-back away games, right? I think that's a part of the schedule too that people have mentioned. I think the only back-to-back away games that they actually have is technically London, and then they have a bye week, and then it's the Pats. But other than that, they don't have a lot of back-to-back away games. Which if
that's the only road back-to-back, which technically isn't a back-to-back. Other than that, they don't have back-to-back weeks with the road game.
Right, and they have 9 home games, 7 road games, and a neutral site game. I mean, for a first year with a new quarterback, new coach, you can't ask for more.
Yeah, exactly. So, and without going through it game by game, do you guys have like a general feel for where a lot has to happen? Obviously the Jets might make some more signings, which we'll probably not get to tonight. We'll probably get into that on our next live stream. So there's so much, things or so many things to cover with the draft, but what's your ceiling and your floor for this team, in terms of their wins and losses? Even though, again, if they sign a Richard Sherman, maybe that kind of gives you some more hope in terms of wins, but general feel. We'll go with Sabo first.
Floor, let's go. I mean, you can't get used to 17 weeks. It's crazy. But floor,
18 weeks.
18 weeks.
See, right? You can't. You're not used to it.
17 games, 18 weeks. They're gonna have to go to 2 bye weeks eventually. I mean, I remember in the 90s, early 90s, there was 2 bye weeks with 16 games at one point. So floor, 6 games, 6 wins, especially with the schedule. Ceiling, I mean, it's going to sound crazy, but you never know. And this is the ceiling, 10-7.
What about you, Nania?
Yeah, for me, the biggest thing that I always think of with the record prediction is the limitations of a rookie quarterback. As good as he can be down the line, I think it's always smart to keep expectations low with a rookie, because generally it's very rare to see rookies play well. No matter how good they turn out to be down the line, not too many of them play well in year one, and that can be tough. But at the same time, there are a lot of parts of this roster that I like. This defense can be really good with that pass rush. The offensive line can be decent, and that can really support this offense to where they can be, okay overall. And if you have an okay offense around Wilson and the defense is great, then maybe they can pull off a season like Miami did last year, win 10 games with the rookie quarterback. But another thing that comes to mind is I just don't see a Robert Saleh coach team being really bad. Like, that's hard for me to picture. Obviously, there's limitations on the roster. They have a long way to go. But to picture a team coached by him being atrocious, winning 4 or 5 games, is just hard to see. So I agree with Robbie. I think 6 is I think they'll be in the 6 to 8 win range. I think that's probably where they'll end up with. The defense can be pretty good, and I think the offense can avoid being bad enough to where it limits it. And then Saleh and the coaching staff really lifts them up. So I see 6 to 8 wins.
Yeah, I'm pretty on pace with Robbie there. I would say like 6 to 9. I'd be pretty disappointed with 6, to be honest. If I had to like hammer it down to like one record, I would probably say like 8 and 9 is what I would be expecting. But you just like look at the variance in the NFL and like some of the hard schedules the Jets have faced in recent years. Like, listen, the 2019 schedule wasn't necessarily easy. They had Adam Gase coaching the team with what we figured out to be not a very good quarterback. Like even year 2 of Darnold, we were kind of trying to convince ourselves, let's be honest, that he was good or he took steps in the right direction when he really didn't. And they won 7 games. So like, why can't a Robert Saleh coach team with Carl Lawson, Vinny Curry, and all these playmakers they brought in for a rookie quarterback? Why can't they win 10 games? Like I can see that being the absolute ceiling too. But if I had to say, I would say like a 7-8 win season is what I'm expecting for the Jets. And we're obviously not trying to compete, necessarily this year, but if they win those 7-8 games and are competitive versus some of the tougher competition they have, like the Bills and maybe even the Dolphins, and then next year, top 5 cap space, a ton of draft picks. Then in 2022, like that's the year where we should be expecting playoffs from the Jets. And I know everybody's like really excited for the schedule, and I am too. Nani, I'm hoping you go to the Panthers. I know I already bought plane tickets, like $100 each way, which is freaking fantastic. Then I'm hitting the Pats game, the Titans game, the Saints game, the Jags game, the Bucks game. I already did out my whole freaking schedule so I can figure out what games I'm going to. So
wait, say that again. Saints, Bucks.
Yeah, week 1 Panthers, week 2 Pats, week 4 Titans. I'll take a day off of work to go to that, and then 14, 16, 17, which is Saints, Jags, Bucks. I'm going to try to go to all those games because usually I have season tickets, but with my job now, it's not necessarily as easy to just take off 9 weeks of the season. Somebody asked in here, and we'll hit this quick before we go into the draft. Is this the year we finally beat the Eagles? Sabo's usually good with Nani's great with numbers too, but Sabo's always good with history and stuff. I feel like
I think we're 0-9 against the Eagles. It's the only team they've never beaten.
I would say
0-11.
Okay.
0-11. Yeah.
Is it going to happen this year?
I think this is
I'll say yes.
I'm going to say yes. I agree. They have it at home. I don't think Philly's looking great. I think this will be the year.
Yeah.
I can see it.
Yeah, I think like some of the teams are playing, like they play the Texans, who's going to be probably the worst team in the NFL this year, assuming that one Deshaun Watson does not play.
What's going to happen with Watson?
If it's undecided, if this court stuff doesn't come and close, he's going to be sitting on the sideline, so he's probably not going to be playing. You'd have to imagine. The Eagles, I would say, are probably going to be a bottom 5 team in the NFL. I think their roster's terrible. I think their quarterback's not very good. Like the Panthers, I don't think are a very good team. I think Nani said the other day in the Slack was saying that he feels that the Panthers are actually overrated, which I agree with. They have some good weapons.
I mean, offensively, like that O-line is not any better than what he had last year.
Right.
And then in terms of the skill positions, DJ Moore is great, but he had Robbie with the Jets, and they don't have much beyond that. They did draft Terrace Marshall, but he's a rookie. You don't know what you're going to get from him. You don't know about McCaffrey's health. And again, it comes down to the O-line. It's not a good O-line. So,
and if you didn't pay close enough attention, you'd figure Bridgewater had like 30 TDs last year, based on the way people were talking about the Panthers. He finished with what, 17? 15?
I think 15.
15. Yeah. Early on they were firing on all cylinders, but it wasn't that great of a output as everyone kind of thought on the surface.
Yeah, and the thing with there's something with the numbers of that too that you think about really quickly before we get into the draft, which again is are already oversaturated. But I hope if you're tuning into this, you're a subscriber. Which, by the way, subscribe $5 a month, $50 a year helps us out. Maybe I can get one of those computer systems where I could draw on the screen and put coverages and all that stuff like the fancy people do. We'll figure that out.
But I got something on my sleeve there. I think we're almost there. There
you go. But the thing with the Panthers, Susie, you look at and Nani is talking about their offensive numbers with the offensive line too, is like Teddy Bridgewater's historically, and I believe at least, a guy who gets the ball out really quickly and is conservative. So if the offensive line looks that bad in terms of pressure, sacks, things like that, with a quarterback who gets rid of the ball quickly, what are you going to do with Darnold, who holds the ball because he doesn't know what he's seeing? So like that offensive line was not addressed. And I don't know about you guys, but I think the strength of the Jets team right now is their defensive line. And when you have Q and Lawson and Curry and Rankins rushing Darnold, I think he's going to panic a little bit. So, but I really see this team, like the defense, and I can see and I'm just gonna ask this question just because I want to be completely honest. That just is what it is. What is your outlook on the defense? And again, I'm going to draft after this, but your outlook on the defense going into the season as is versus going into the season with a Richard Sherman or a Steven Nelson as the corner. Like, how much of a difference do you think that makes for the defense just to have that one guy? Nani, I'll go with you first.
Yeah, that can change everything because you look at it right now. The pass rush can be great, with Quinnen, Rankins, Lawson, Curry, Franklin Myers. I mean, it's ridiculous. It can be a top 3 to 5 pass rush. At linebacker, you have question marks, but Mosley's there, who, if he's healthy, is a top 10 kind of guy. Then at safety, you're pretty good with Joyner and Marcus May, and then Davis as the third guy. Then a cornerback, you just have a lot of young guys, a lot of question marks. I like Hall a lot in this scheme, but beyond Bryce Hall, Bless Austin is your starting number 2 corner right now, and that's not ideal. Anyone who watches Blewett knows he is not a Bless Austin fan, to put it nicely. And just like I was watching Quinnen film today, and the only thing I was noticing other than him dominating was Austin missing tackles, getting blown up in the open field by the left tackle on a screenplay, getting toasted deep. He's not good. So it would be a huge boost just to have, because you don't need a lockdown corner in this defense, really. You just need to get a veteran like Sherman or Nelson who just can play their role, not blow coverages, not miss tackles, would be huge. Because right now, feel like teams are going to get the ball out quick. They're going to make guys like Bless Austin make tackles in space, not blow coverages deep. And he's going to mess up. He's going to make mistakes, and it's going to mitigate what the pass rush can do. So if you get a veteran in there who's going to do his job and just not make mistakes, it's really going to allow the pass rush to fulfill its potential. So I think it would be huge. I think you can increase your ranking just with that alone, maybe 5 spots or so, 5 to 10. That's too much. Maybe 5 spots just with that alone, but it would be huge.
Yeah, I think it'll make a difference. Bless us, he's stiff. He's just stiff. He can't move. And the thing, though, see, why I want Sherman is more for development with the other guys. It does make a difference long term to have a guy like that. Yeah, he'll help the unit right now, but I want that guy in the room with those guys for the long term and development. I'm looking more for a Panock or a Dunn, one of these guys you don't expect to emerge. That's what I really want over anything else. Nelson, Nelson would help too, but Sherman more for the long-term development. And again, it's about the D-line, as Blewett just said. It's about their depth too. They're 6, 7, 8 deep, which is huge. So, I'm not the 2 positions you could have gone light on were the right positions they opted for, linebacker and corner, because of the conventional rush.
Yeah, and Nani kind of alluded to it. I've said it a couple times. I just don't want the effectiveness of the front 7 completely mitigated by corners like Bless Austin, who is not good in a variety of ways at this point. Eagle was saying he doesn't want these older corners, but I agree exactly with you, Saba. While Nelson, who, by the way, I'm hearing a little bit that he's not signing with the Jets because he wants a longer term deal, and the Jets are just offering 1 year. That's kind of been what's been circulating. If that's true, I'm not really sure. That's what people have been saying. And while he might be better for the long term, if you're going to sign him to a long term deal for 1 year, I'd rather have Sherman because of obviously his mental aspect of his game, his familiarity with Saleh, and then you also have some of the builds of this team, like guys like Hall, guys like Panock, are really similar in terms of build to a Richard Sherman in terms of how they should be used. So he could really help those guys. So I would be excited to see him. And I agree with Nania too in terms of like probably a defensive ranking of like 5, 6 spots if you just have one good guy, because I feel like Hall, even though like some of the numbers will indicate that he wasn't necessarily great last year, like look at some of the plays he was getting beat on, like tight coverage on Keenan Allen, tight coverage on Mike Williams, like whoever it was, like minus the Raiders game where he got abused by Waller. He was playing pretty well in terms of his technique. It's not like Austin where he's beat by 5 to 10 yards with no chance of him playing the ball. Hall was beat while playing the ball. So I'd be pretty excited, honestly, if they were to sign a Sherman. But we'll hit this quick too. I'll get to some of the questions in the chat because there's just other news that's been circulating throughout the day. Actually, 2 things. One, Tavon Austin, we'll hit that first. Any thoughts on that at all? That's been circulating a little bit. The Jets brought him in. The workout went well. He had a video on Instagram. I think it was an Instagram or like a Snapchat of him in the Jets locker room. So it seems like if you had to bet, you'd probably say they're going to sign him. You guys have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I wonder how much he has left into his 30s. He hasn't been productive in a while, but he's a great fit for what they're doing, right? Like you could easily picture him running jet sweeps, things like that, competing to return. So definitely worthwhile.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, why not? It's another weapon, another guy who could take the jet motion duties, punt return, and there's been so many seasons where they only have one or no guys who could return. It's a default guy. So yeah, Adam.
Yeah, and it's funny too. Like he'll be our 6th receiver this year, and like a couple of years ago, we were running out with like Andre Roberts as your number 1 against the Chicago Bears, and now Tavon Austin, who obviously didn't live up to his hype as the 8th overall pick, right? Because that's when the Rams traded up in front of the Jets. That draft. I was that's the only draft I went to, which by the way, at least at Radio City Music Hall was massively overrated. That sucked, to be completely honest, going to the draft.
What, at Radio City Music Hall?
Yeah, it was terrible. You have to wait the day before to get a ticket to go in the next day. And then the next day you have to wait another like 5-6 hours in line just to get in. So if you feel like going to New York for 2 days and waiting in line for 10 hours, then fine, that's on you. Behind the cameras, behind the desk, you can't really see a lot. So yeah, it wasn't the most fun experience I've ever had in my life. That's for sure. Some people talk about in the chat, people talk about Lamar Jackson in terms of a corner, and the Jets corner, like we'll have that discussion, roster predictions, all that stuff in the future. Like they have a lot of guys, unproven guys, but a lot of bodies in general, like who we could make arguments for making the roster, like Lamar Jackson. And then you have Guidry, you have Dunn, like you're talking about with like a massive cornerback contract in terms of UDFAs. You have obviously Austin, Hall, Eckles. I'm just naming the whole roster at this point with corners,
Sure.
but it's gonna be a dogfight. I think that Lamar Jackson played relatively well. I think if I had to choose one or the other right now between Lamar Jackson and Bless Austin, I'd rather have Lamar Jackson, to be completely honest, too. Elias asks if we can make a Bless and Austin highlight or lowlights video. Very easily. I could send Nania at least 30 plays and he could just cut it up and it'll be a 4-minute long video of him.
That'll definitely be a popular video. People will love that one.
Yeah, until his cousin finds it on Twitter and comes at you like he did to me. Cousin, brother, friend, whatever it was. He's like, yeah. I'm not going to say exactly what he said, but he had to shortly thereafter delete his tweets after. I was like, so who are you? Somebody said, why use Tavon Austin when you have Vincent Smith? Because Vincent Smith is more improving than Tavon Austin. Like you guys were talking about, like a couple roles to fill: punt returner, kick returner. I think that'll put Barrios off the roster, who I know Sabo is the #1 Barrios fan. That'll most likely put him off the roster. Another jet sweep guy. He's like another gadget guy that you have.
And injuries happen.
Vincent Smith. Injuries happen. And if anything, like in terms of speed on the team, if let's say that is your 6 guys, he's the second best like speed threat on your team. So if Elijah Moore is tired, gas, whatever, you have Tavon Austin, who is probably going to see 5 to 10 offensive snaps per game, but he can run vertical on those plays. And even if he doesn't get the ball, obviously opening up that defense is an important part of football. Obviously open up intermediate, etc. So Eagle asked, he said, we need a reaction for star tight end Tim Tebow signing with the Jags, even though it's a Jets channel. He is an ex-Jet.
He's going to get cut.
Dude, I listen, like, and I know people are talking about it. Like some people minimize it, like, oh, like, it's who cares? He's going to get cut. It doesn't matter. I'm not sure that's what you were insinuating, but for me, it's like, why even bring that in that distraction? Like you already have Urban Meyer, who I have some massive question marks in terms of him as like a leader, etc. And now you're like, you had to fire coaches. Now you're bringing in Tim Tebow, who hasn't played in the NFL in 8 years. So I just think it's an unnecessary distractions. But any quick thoughts now? We'll get into some of the draft picks.
Yeah, he's the risk reward just isn't there. The risk is way higher than the reward. Can he block? I don't see it happening. Can he catch? I don't see it happening. He's a mouthpiece for Urban Meyer's program, I guess, but at the NFL level, it's a lot different than college. It's going to piss a lot of guys off in the locker room. I don't see the benefit to it, and I don't see him making the roster, to be honest. I just don't see it. All that other conversation with Kaepernick, we're not going to get into. It's ridiculous, but I just don't think it's worth the risk.
Yeah, I agree. And it's really questionable, some of the stuff that they've been doing over there around Lawrence. So, and this is just one of the moves. So it's a headline grabbing move, which is not smart when you're trying to ease in your rookie quarterback, no matter how great you think he is. It, like you said, Robbie, the risk reward, like, okay, maybe you get a decent special teams guy for what? So it doesn't make any sense to me.
This is Meyer thinking he's kind of still in college where he can control everything. And you can't really control everything at this level. The guys will fall out of line if certain things don't feel right. And so that's kind of, I think he's not taking it into consideration. I've been saying it for a while. I think Jacksonville's going to be a disaster. From Balky to the owner to Urban Meyer, I think Trevor Lawrence was put in a terrible situation.
Yeah, we have a guy in the chat, Bus, who says new here, welcome. He said, did anyone else think that was Shane McMahon? Which you've gotten so much.
It's like the
Sabo,
seventh or eighth time.
It is great because you're young, but it's with the gray hair. So
I love Shane O'Mac. I mean, I used to be a huge wrestling fan in the '90s, late '90s, early 2000s. So, hey, I'm all about Shane O'Mac. But it's funny, I never got that before the online people started.
You should make his theme the intro to your podcast.
Here comes the money.
Yep.
The only problem is I don't have money. It doesn't really work.
And then somebody compared, which I didn't know who this was until I looked it up. But somebody said no, but I thought it was Tony Khan below, and I googled Tony Khan, and Nania kind of does. Like I can see it.
Oh, Nania.
Oh, me?
Yeah, Tony Khan.
Jags owner.
Yeah, I didn't. No, this isn't that Sharif Khan or whatever the hell his name is. This is Tony Khan. I don't know who the hell he is.
I think it's his son.
Oh, is it? Okay, well that's Nania now, and we have Shane McMahon.
And they own AEW Wrestling too. They own the WWF's competitor.
A star-studded cast on Jets X Factor right now, breaking down the Jets draft picks. I'm not sure I have the best crew with Khan and Shane McMahon. So
are you Luke Voigt? Isn't that what people said you are?
I think I think so. I don't know
which. That's actually not bad. That's actually not bad.
I've gotten 2 baseball players before. I don't know who the hell. I don't know who Luke Voigt is. Somebody said, "Wow." Okay, so let's do the draft class. Let's hit that. We talked about some basically bullshit for 26 minutes. So let's get into the meat and potatoes and hit the draft class for. Will not obviously be the last time. I just put out a 2-hour video of Elijah Moore. You should watch that and the article, but. I'm already almost on Michael Carter. We have a ton of actual film coming out, but in terms of like talking points, talk radio type stuff, we're gonna hit this for the last time as an overall type of overview. Nania, you were sitting there at 8:30, 8:25. The Jaguars already picked. You kind of wanted Fields. You kind of wanted Wilson. Once the Jets pick was in, were you hoping it was Fields at that point? Were you hoping it was Wilson? What happened?
I was on board with Wilson by that point. I definitely had. Moved fully over to that side. I was fully expecting it, fully okay with it. So yeah, I was off the Fields train by that point. I think he'll do well in Chicago. I mean, not the best situation, but I like the pick for them. But I was definitely all aboard with Wilson by that point.
Yeah, gotcha. What about you? Well, Sabo, we know, but and this is something we don't really need to touch on. Like we've talked about Wilson forever. I did 2 shows on him. Nani has done a ton of numbers. Obviously, Sabo, you've been on that train for quite a while, as well. So that topic has been hammered out. And it's funny, like we're doing votes for like I always do votes for, like who we're next, and Wilson's like always the lowest because people are just it's so oversaturated with Wilson. I think that guys like Sherwood are going to win a vote to have a show done on before part 3 of Wilson. So like people are done with that subject. We like him. The media is being a little bit done with him in terms of like his mom and asking questions and questioning his beliefs and all this stupid crap that has nothing to do with football. But overall, I think he's handling it well. Obviously going to dinner and all this stuff with Elijah Moore and already setting up like, Mark Sanchez's version of Jets West or whatever the hell that was with the players and all this stuff. So I think he's handling it really well, wearing number 2, which quick thoughts. Nania, I know you're a jersey number guy.
I'm on board with it now. Initially, like I was okay with the 1. I like the symmetry of it. I know a lot of people don't like it because it's just a rectangle, has nothing coming off of it. But I like the symmetry. But now that I see him in the 2, I kind of like it. It's unique for a quarterback. You haven't seen too many guys wear it. He's a chance to. Matt Ryan is probably the best number 2 of all time, so he can make a play for that to be the best guy to number. So I'm okay with it. I do like it now.
Yeah, 2 is cool. I mean, you think Jeter? I mean, I know it's a different sport.
God.
But you think Jeter? What's the saying? What's the saying? Number 2 in the program, number 1 in your heart. So ride with that saying. And
you got some brown stuff on your nose, Sabo.
Let me get it. And the topic, greatest quarter. This is what I hate. The greatest quarterback number topic. Anyone who picks anything other than 12 is out of their mind. And I've seen that a lot when the Wilson number came down. 12
he literally can't pick. He can't pick 12.
No, I'm just saying the all-time greatest quarterback numbers. Like in your mind, what's the top quarterback number of all time?
Yeah, I always I immediately think of like 12 and 7. Like are my 2 like big ones.
Yes. like I've seen people take other numbers. That just drives me mad. I don't know how you don't pick 12 or 7. 7 is the only other possible one.
Yeah, that was a Mike Vick thing. But yeah, I'm okay with it again. Number 2 pick in the draft. Maybe like he went to his number 2 school. Like athletes try to play up all that stuff in their head. And I like it more than 1 because of how one the skinny is or how skinny the 1 is. But yeah, overall, I like the 2. I already ordered a white Wilson jersey because
white is the best one. I was looking at them. I'm like, that's the one that stuck out to me.
Like I just have OCD maybe, and like knowing in my closet I only have 1 current Jets green jersey, and like I always say like I'm not gonna get more Jets jerseys. Like I gotta get retired players, but I always like to have current guys, so I had to order a white Wilson. I went with Elijah Moore black too because the single digit number I think is pretty cool, and I think Elijah Moore should be pretty good. So I ordered those 2. Somebody said Lindor is better than Jeter. Thoughts on that?
Wow, he's just out of your mind.
Hey, he's been hitting recently. The Nets are on a 7-8 game streak. We just
listen. To be honest,
we just smacked the Orioles.
I grew up a Yankees fan, but I've been watching more Mets over the past couple of years because the Yes broadcast is just dreadful. I like the SNY broadcast. So,
did Brian Gonzalez really just ask who was 12 on the Jets? Please, somebody in the chat just answer that, man. And also.
What do you say?
He asked who number 12 is on the Jets right now. I guess why he can't wear it. By the way, somebody asked, Eagle said, how is Joe Blewett not a mod on your own channel with a smiley face? Which I don't know. I think there's been some miscommunication with me and Sabo. Where I'm not a mod. So Sabo, I have the capability to run the Jets X Factor, but my actual thing I comment from, I'm not a mod on. So I think
sent him the invites millions of times. I don't know what he's doing over there.
That is a lie.
I don't know what the hell he's doing.
It's a lie. But okay. Move past the Zach Wilson pick again. Number 2, cool with it. I think he looked relatively good in minicamp or rookie minicamp. But again, it's rookie minicamp going.
He looked the part too. In person, I was expecting to see him like a little bit smaller, but he just looked the part, and I was like, well, it kind of took me aback a little bit. To be honest.
Yeah, you were there. You were there live too, obviously. So
he looked the part. He fit in. He was engaging with some guys. Salah too.
Zip on the balls. Was the zip noticeable?
The zip was noticeable. It was impressive. The placement was good, but I mean, it's rookie minicamp against air. What can you break down? But the feeling was different. Salah was optimistic. The coaching staff was optimistic. That's pretty much the biggest takeaway.
Yeah. But yeah, it's move on. Elijah Vera Tucker. This is a move that is like hotly contested, not necessarily the pick, but the trade up. I feel like I know where both of you guys are going to stand on this, and it's kind of where I stand on it. Where people, and this is just quickly, like people like to assume like, okay, well, you could have got Darrisaw, who some of his questions coming out were like he's a little bit soft, and people don't know if he's going to be able to make it at guard. Like, oh, you could have got him and Wyatt Davis in the 3rd round, but like people just assume because you fill a position that everybody's just as good as Elijah Vera Tucker. Like just because Wyatt Davis is a guard and Elijah Vera Tucker a guard, or Darrisaw can be a guard, that he's just as good as Vera Tucker. So overall, I'm okay with the trade up. They saw a guy who was a top 10 player on their board. They traded 2/3 for a 4th and the 14th pick to get a player that they legitimately like and who I think watching his film is very, very, very safe prospect. So I'm cool with the trade. And again, like with the variance in the draft, like a 3rd overall or a 3rd round pick works out probably 20% of the time. Like obviously there's variability of how much he works out, starter, role player, whatever it may be, but you're getting up 2 of those for a guy who you think is gonna be a stud offensive lineman for the next 10 years for you. So I'm cool with it. Nania, what were your thoughts? It was surprising. So we were all sitting there, I'm sure on our couches, wherever you were sitting, and you're like, holy shit, they traded up. And then we all knew who it was for at that point, let's be honest. So overall thoughts on it, Nania?
Yeah, I'm definitely okay with it. And I kind of thought it would be a possibility just because they kind of got a bad hand in free agency with the guard position. It was such a huge need, and it wasn't a good market for them to spend on. There's Tooney, and then that was it. They missed out on him. He went to this back-to-back Super Bowl team. There was no one else for them to go to. So I kind of felt like they might make that move to ensure they could get the best guard in the class. It was also a great scheme fit, and at least apparently on their board is a top 10 player, a red star player in Joe Douglas's terms. So I think that's a big part of this discussion too, because there have been those arguments out there about it not being worth it. There's no reason to trade 2/3, go get a guard, whatever. First of all, I think guard is being too undervalued by those people. There are so many games the Jets have lost over the past few years where their guards are one of the top few reasons where they lost. If you want to look at why Darnold didn't pan out, the guard position is probably the number one reason why, more so than really any other position on the obviously altogether, but it matters. It's really important. And I think it's stupid when people suggest it's like a non-premium position. The Jets have lost so many games from their guards being awful. So that's number one. Number two, it comes down to you can't just look at what picks have tended to be over the years, because it's just different every year. To the Jets, Vera Tucker is a top 10 guy. Maybe other people don't agree with that, but at least in their estimation, that's how they see it. So you have to play the board based on your own rankings, your own board. So that's really where the disconnect is, because we have these trade charts and everything. We have history, and you could try to use that to, make these valuations. But the teams know what they want. They know what they're looking for in terms of scheme, skill set, and they know who's best for them. And also, they all view players differently. Some teams love a guy, some teams hate him. And in terms of the Jets with Vera Tucker, they saw it as worth it. He fills a big need. He's a great scheme fit, and he supports the quarterback, which is most important. So I think it's definitely worth it. There's no doubt that you're sacrificing a little bit losing those two picks, especially on defense. That's where you're going to see the impact the most, at corner, at linebacker. So there's definitely a price, but at the same time, I think it's worth it to fill what was their biggest non-quarterback need, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, most of the people who say it wasn't a good deal for the Jets are analytical people, and they're just going based on analytics. And while I'm on the train that...
Taking shots at Nania. Wow.
Oh, no.
I'm not associating myself with this one.
Nania is just not analytics.
I get it. Good.
Nania combines the two. But you get what I'm saying. There's no formula for, differentiating the 14th pick this year from last year or the year before. Like, there's no formula for that. So you can't just go by analytics, because clearly they view AVT as more than a 14th overall pick. And if that's the case, there's no way to solely come out of it and say it's a bad deal. So yeah, I'm with Nania completely. You want him, you targeted that guy, go get him.
Yeah, and it's almost like a overplayed like media thing, I guess, in terms of like, oh, well, guard's not as important as tackle. Yeah, maybe not, but it's still massively important. Like, people know who Quentin Nelson is, people know who Brandon Sheriff is, people know who Joe Tooney is, people know who Zach Martin is, for a reason. Like, they make a big impact on their teams. So if you get a guy who's going to be a Pro Bowl level guard, I'm completely fine with that. And there was one thing we were all saying before the draft, like, yeah, we knew we had needs at corner and linebacker. But if there was one thing we wanted them to do, it was to build around Wilson, because it's not about 2021. So they traded up and got their guy, and a lot of these picks, you see them, whoever it may be, it doesn't matter if it's a 5th round pick, 6th round pick. Oh, we're so excited you fell to us. You're the best player on our board, blah, 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 blah. But when the Jets actually trade capital up to get a guy like AVT, how much they truly liked him, because they actually spent the capital. They actually showed us on paper how much they really liked this guy. So yeah, Wyatt Davis may be good, but maybe they didn't think he was. Obviously, Tevin Jenkins had some, I think, character concerns and injury questions pop up shortly before the draft. Darrisaw, from what I've heard from people I trust, is a little bit soft. And can he play guard, which is a question. So if you thought AV2 is the best guard in the draft and you weren't very happy with the guys to be plug and play Pro Bowl level type guys, I'm not saying necessarily in year one, even though I think he'd be above average in year one. I would say that he's actually probably safer in year one than Becton was safe going into year one, based on their variance of play and what they needed to work on. Obviously, Becton was a stud his first year, but I'm just saying, coming out, I'm more comfortable with AVT starting week one. But yeah, it's a good move. I don't think anybody can really question it.
Yeah, and
you're overthinking it.
Yeah, and more than the position, it's about building blocks on the offensive line. It's about can't miss guys, and clearly AVT is more of a can't miss guy than anyone else. And if you have that can't miss guy in Becton and AVT, you're off and running.
Yeah, for sure. Somebody asked a question.
Also, one more point that it's also important that they have plenty of draft capital, so it's not like they're sacrificing too much. They have an extra first next year, an extra third, and they had the extra third this year to make that trade. So they have plenty to work with. It's not like they were blowing up their draft class to make this trade.
Yeah, somebody, a couple questions. Shadow asked, did you hear anything negative about AVT just like you did about Darrisaw? No, to be completely honest, I didn't really hear anything about him. Somebody's talking about Hogue, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Somebody said Will A said guard is partially underrated because the best at the position haven't gotten their second paycheck yet. Quentin Nelson, Wyatt, Teller, etc. Maybe that's the reason, but I don't think that's a very large reason, to be completely honest. I just think people overemphasize tackle and how important it is. And it is important, but again, I'm not good with like tackle is 100% of importance where guard is 95% of importance. Like it's still important, obviously. Somebody said, we hear a lot about AVT's zone run blocking skills. Do you think he could be a pass blocking anchor? Based on what you guys have watched, do you think so? I've watched 2 or 3 games. I'll have obviously a full blown breakdown on him. I think he's very, very, very good pass blocker. I think he's a very, very, very good run blocker. He's the best guard in the draft for a reason. They traded up, but he's very, very good. So, Nania, I know you obviously watch the film as well as doing the stats. So what did you think watching AVT?
Yeah, I agree. And like the numbers are definitely there. When he played guard in 2019, he was right up there in both phases in terms of both pass protection and run blocking. But yeah, I agree. The biggest thing is that I think he's a safe prospect. He's a guy who it's hard to see him being really bad because there's just not much that he struggles with. He's a good athlete, especially in this offense where he's going to be out of the move. He's great at framing guys in space, very athletic, getting off the line. So it's just hard to see him failing. If he played tackle, I think there'd be more questions because of the arm length. He has really short arms. But at guard, it's just hard to see him being bad. Will he be dominant at some point like Becton could be? He could be. I don't think his odds are as great as like they are for Becton in terms of being an overpowering player. But he's just so well-rounded. It's hard to see him missing. And I think that is a big part of the appeal of why you can trade up for him because the odds are good that he's going to make it worth it and be the long-term starter you need him to be.
Yeah, for sure. We actually have a caller. I don't know. It looks like the first name is Michael, who actually wants to talk about AV or AVT's position versatility. I think your name is Michael. Hopefully you can hear us. Mike, what's up?
Hey, it's Will, but my dad's name is Michael, so
Oh, there you go. That's close enough, name. Right?
And we got a Michael in the group, so
yep,
it's a good name. Anyway, I was just gonna say a thing that I really love about AVT, is his position versatility, and with Becton, so far showing that he may or may not have some issues with staying healthy and being able to play a full season. I just really like how I would feel comfortable, definitely more comfortable with AVT even filling in at left tackle over a guy like Fant or anyone else on the roster. I watched him against probably the top edge, if not one of the top 3 edges last year in Kayvon Thibodeau from Oregon. And he really, he looked comfortable. He looked like, comfortable in that position. And I thought that was just so impressive. So let alone the fact that he's the best guard in the class, that position versatility and being able to fill in for Becton if he does have to sit on the sideline is also huge.
Yeah, and that added to Joe Tooney's kind of value as well. Like he's a guy who could play tackle for the Patriots in a pinch too. I don't know if he actually took reps. I think he actually did in a couple of games, if I'm not mistaken. I think I watched, but we watched thousands of hours of this stuff sometimes, so I forget. But I'm pretty sure he played some tackle. So yeah, it's very important. I think if you wanted to flex AVT to right tackle, I think he could be better than Fant right now. It's just you have to weigh what you have behind Fant and all the stuff versus what you have at guard. So you're gonna have him play at guard. I'm kind of the mindset like if he plays at a Pro Bowl level at guard, just keep him there. Like that's plenty worth it. Somebody brought up in the chat that the wins above replacement for a good guard is almost just as valuable as a tackle. So it's really important, and the versatility, like you said, in case Becton goes down. We're talking about jerseys before. I love Becton, kind of want his jersey, but I think every Jets fan, we can admit, us 4 here and 123 people in the chat can admit we're a little bit nervous with Becton in terms of the injuries. Like you can't not be nervous about that, seeing what he did in year 1 and considering age and stuff as he moves forward. So for a guy in AVT to play at a top level at both guard and tackle, it definitely adds to the value for sure. Sabo, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, if you target a can't miss offensive lineman, I'll never go against that line of thinking. You know, we saw it in 2006 and it worked out. I mean, the fact that it took 14 years for it to happen again is just beyond belief. So, you know, I'm all aboard. I'm all aboard what Douglas has done the last 2 years.
Yeah, and I really agree on the flexibility of the importance of having a starter who has that flexibility, because it helps when you have that, because then you have freedom with your backups. If, you know, you don't feel comfortable with what you have at left tackle, but you do feel better about left guard, what you have in your backups, you can move AVT over to left tackle and slide someone in left guard, whether that's Lewis, Clark, whoever. So I think that's a big part of it. So that's definitely a big plus. I agree.
Where did he play at tackle in college? Left or right?
Left.
He played left.
His whole last year he played left tackle. So, Cole, do you have anything else to add before we get into some other draft picks? We definitely appreciate the call if you don't have anything else to add.
Yep, that's all I got. Thanks, you guys. Have a good night.
Appreciate it. We have Lester in the chat. We have Steven, who says he's always late, which I feel like he always is. Somebody asked, Rusty's always bringing the energy. He's been here for 2 shows, but I love the energy that Rusty's always bringing. I know Sabo's.
I wonder if that's his real name, to be honest.
Rusty Spooner. I don't know. Maybe somebody said. So 2 questions in the chat before we get to the other picks. One, and I wonder if you guys, and I'll ask you, Sabo, first, because you're big, like 85 Bears, like throwback football type guys. Like the trenches is something you appreciate. Somebody said, is starting with building the blind side what you want for a rookie quarterback. So like just a quick audible to this. If you had to rank like the offensive line positions in terms of importance for a rookie or even for a veteran, it's pretty much the same thing. Well, you could argue actually a little bit different actually in some senses, but it depends on obviously the offense, you know, the zone system you're running.
Yeah, it depends on scheme.
There's a lot of variables, but overall, like in a general sense.
In a general sense, left tackle, number 1. And we're going with the right-handed quarterback. So left tackle, number 1, center, number 2. And I guess we'd go, and this is where it gets interesting. I don't know, between left guard, and right tackle.
I agree with your 1 and 2. I'm down, and then I would say right tackle, just because you're.
You say right tackle 3 for sure.
Just because it's easier to cover for guards. I would say if you're having some issues inside where you could really isolate tackles and things like that, like overloads to the opposite side, and you're going to put that guy as a Gilligan, as I like to refer to it, on an island.
Your guards have to be fast. They have to be quick too, though.
I would say left tackle, center, right tackle.
Yeah, I can't argue with it. I can't argue with that.
So, Nani, do you agree with that?
Yeah, I think for me, left tackle is definitely number 1, just because that's of all the 5 positions, I think you could lose a game the quickest if you're bad there, just because it's the blind side. So I think that's obvious. Beyond that, though, I mean, you're right, Joe. I think right tackle, just because of how those guys can be isolated a lot easier than guards and centers can be, probably puts it number 2. But really, you watch, if you have a star player on defense, whether it's an edge guy or an interior guy, and he's on a roll and he can destroy a game from pretty much anywhere. So to me, I always look at it as, other than left tackle, I feel like the value is pretty close between the rest of the spots. Having a bad player any spot can lose you the game pretty quickly. So
yeah, for sure. Yeah. Somebody asked, I don't know the history of this, Rusty, who, by the way, he said, you guys are awesome, gangrene family. Appreciate you, Rusty. He said, or he asked, the last time we selected an O-line in the first prior to the 2000s was 1967. So that wasn't a question. I don't know if that's factual or not.
First round offensive lineman?
Prior to in the first prior to 2000s was 1967. Is that true? I'm not going to.
That's not true.
Not true? Rusty, you're throwing out bad stats in here, guy.
The last time they drafted a guard in the first round was the late 80s. I forget his name. I don't think it's true, but I'll double check.
Somebody else asked, do you think Becton's injuries were a result of him trying to throw players around rather than just staying on his blocks? I think that can have a part to do with it. Obviously, if you're lifting a weight, like just think about it like with your body, like you don't want to necessarily have explosive movements with weights. So why you see like a lot of like CrossFitters and stuff get injured. You want one smooth, slow motion, typically. But it has a part to do with it. I would say it's not a huge part, but that was a problem. One of my issues with his blocking was like, a lot of people, like, it made the highlight reels, that you'd see the 2-minute clips on Twitter, of him throwing around guys. But then the problem with that is some of those other plays where it wasn't a highlight, a guy would stay on balance, stay square, able to dip his shoulder, get around Becton, and then make the tackle instead of Becton driving a guy, kicking a guy outside. He tried to throw guys. So I think him maintaining contact, getting, locking out those thumbs and twisting, getting under a guy is more important than him throwing guys and making highlights. But I don't necessarily think it's a huge deal. I don't know if you guys disagree with me in terms of like injuries.
Now, Rusty, really quick. Yeah, they drafted 2 first-round guards in 88 and 86 with Cadigan and Height, and then 78 was the last tackle with Chris Ward.
Somebody else asked about Yeboah. Yeboah is coming out. And somebody else in the future, that's in like 2 months down the road. And then somebody asked, which I already did all of Yeboah, and then somebody said, thoughts on Feeney? Do you plan on reviewing his film? If I get to the 20 guys I have to get to before him in the next 3 months, I have to put out at least 20 shows plus live streams, like 25, 26 shows in 3 months. So will I get to him? Probably not. I think you guys rather see the draft picks and Tevin Coleman and those guys.
I don't know if you want to watch him.
Nania, what are your thoughts? You watched him. I watched a little tiny bit, but
I mean, even just look at the Jets game against the Chargers this year. I mean, Quinnen and Franklin Myers were destroying him. He's really bad. He's given up the most pressures of any interior guy over the last 3 seasons. So
yeah, their left tackle when I watched him was really, really bad too. I don't know what their left tackle's name was, but I think he had like long hair, like dreads or something like that. But he was not good either. He was absolutely terrible. Socrates Johnson said Robbie McMahon. So
that's a crazy with it's McMahon style. I like it. I can't say I don't like it.
Next pick. Obviously, going into day 2, we were thinking it was going to be most likely JOK. We were thinking that Tevin Jenkins was rumored to the Jets. The Jets liked him. They might have taken him at 23. I was expecting one of those guys, or was expecting a trade down, regain those assets, trade down a couple spots to gain an extra third, whatever it may be. I think that I can speak for the 3 of us and a lot of people in the chat, to be completely honest. We were probably a lot of us were pretty shocked it was Elijah Moore. Then obviously we dig in. And once we dug in, what were your guys' thoughts? Nania, hit you first.
Yeah, I was definitely surprised. That was not on my radar at all. I did not expect wide receiver to be in play there. I thought it was going to be either Jenkins or Owusu-Koramoah. So I was taken aback by it. But like you said, once we dug into it, not that we didn't know who he was at that point. Obviously, we knew plenty about him. But once you really dig into him, I think the biggest thing that you take away with Moore is that your first assumption is, as a smaller guy, good athlete, that he's going to come into this offense and be your jet sweep guy, your screen guy. But the more you look at him, the more you realize that he can, despite his size, he can be a complete wide receiver. He's great in many facets of the position. Yeah, he can do those things for you, but he can also win deep. He can win intermediate. He can win in the quick game. So he's the complete package despite his size. I think that's the biggest thing you take away the more you dig into him.
Yeah, I was surprised. I wasn't completely shocked, but I was really surprised because I knew Douglas knew the trio wasn't complete. They needed, like Nania said, they needed that jet motion guy really bad. You have to threaten the edge in this new NFL. You just have to. And they didn't have that guy. Barrio says that guy doesn't cut it. It just doesn't do it. Crowder can't do it. At that spot, yes, it's surprising, but from Blewett's film review, he'll be the jet motion guy immediately, but he's so much more, like Nania said. So he might be my favorite pick of the entire draft, to be honest.
Yeah, go read the article, full list of strengths and weaknesses, with a roundup of the pick and what I thought. Put a decent amount of work into that, and then a 2-hour
great
plus
article.
show.
Everyone should check that out. Really sums them up great.
Yeah, appreciate that. Yeah, just go on Jets X Factor, and I think the whole article is free. We made it all free to rope you guys in. So go check it out and read about it. Strengths and weaknesses, not just the typical stuff you see where people list like 5-6 things like, speed and route running, like actually break down like why is he a good route runner? What does he do with his footwork? Like all that stuff I talk about in the show. But yeah, versatile guy. Could do really whatever you want from play X to Z. Some people are asking about that slot. jet motions, end arounds, orbit motions, a distraction type guy as well. Can kick, return, and punt return for you, which if he's already taking a lot of these like orbit motions and things like that, like you don't want him taking too much on his body. But I like the pick. And again, like people are talking about in the chat, like it's taking the best player available, which I agree with. And you look at the Jets receiving core right now, like was Elijah Moore a bigger need than, maybe right guard? No. But we're not talking about 2021. We've already emphasized that a couple of times in this live stream. It's about 2022 and on. Obviously, it's a little bit about 2021 because Wilson's here and he helps that.
It was still a need, but it was
Well, he felt, and I said in an article, two birds, one stone. Right. A deep threat and a guy who could take end arounds and really do whatever else you want him to. But those are the two biggest needs.
He can carry the ball. So. He can carry the ball a couple times a game too.
Yeah, for sure. So I like the pick a lot. And now you're looking at a receiving core past this year of Mims and Davis and Elijah Moore. So, Crowder and Cole might not be here. So now you have 3 deep again, which is great. So somebody's asking about him, I guess Rob or say not Sabo, Salah, talking about him playing X again. He could play X, Z slot, whatever you want him to play. So that's important as well to have that versatility. Sharman said the breakdown was great. I appreciate that. Let's move on to the next pick. Now we have a long wait, day 2. We're all like waiting. I'm pretty sure at the end of the 3rd round, like I like this guy. Trade up, get him. Didn't happen. The Jets wait all the way until day 3, and their first pick, another pick that was relatively surprising at this point. It's like, okay, take a corner, take a linebacker. Like, there were some guys there who we probably wanted at both positions. They again decide to help out our rookie quarterback, and looking at the Jets running back room, which obviously the pick was Michael Carter. Their running back room is bottom 3 to 5 in the league before this pick, I would say. Now, we obviously talked about the fact that it was not overly important because of guys like Breda and like Mostert, who are UDFAs and were successful with the system that the Shanahan system is going to be bringing, or the Shanahan system that's going to be used with the Jets. So it wasn't a huge emphasis. It was more of a secondary need for the Jets, but saw a guy that they liked in Michael Carter. Sabo, what are your thoughts?
I can't hate it at all. I do like it. He does seem to be a good fit for what LaFleur wants to do. I'm interested in seeing your review based on what you just showed me before the live stream started. His vision in terms of behind the line of scrimmage or downfield. Mm-hmm. How drastically different it is. But he's funny story. My dad, I was moving on that day, so I didn't get to catch a lot of it. And my dad texted me, "Did you see this running back kid? He reminds me of Emmitt Smith." And I immediately just lambasted him. What are you, out of your mind, Emmitt Smith? And so, but I kind of gave him a pass. I was like, okay, he keeps his shoulders square, kind of looks like it. Okay, old man, I'll give you a tip of the cap a little bit. But he's always balanced. He seems to have power. We'll see. We'll see what happens. I don't hate the pick whatsoever. They needed a back. Didn't have to have one, which is interesting. But no complaints.
Yeah, I'm a fan of it. They didn't necessarily need a running back. It is the least important position on offense or defense, but they could definitely upgrade. It's like you said, probably bottom 3 to 5 backfield. They were last. Their running backs were in yards after contact per carry, so they could have stood to improve a lot. And I think Carter. I did like this pick. He's probably my favorite offensive prospect for them at this point. I also like that he's good in all the fundamental areas. There are a lot of things running backs can control that I want some guys to be good at. He doesn't drop the ball. He's a good pass blocker. He's good after contact. His receiving is pretty good. He's not a versatile guy in terms of lining up in the slot or anything like that. But he makes plays after the catch. Is very low drop numbers. So there's a lot to like about him, and I think he's a good fit in the scheme. He's a great big play guy. He had the most 15-plus yard runs in college football last season, and that's another thing the Jets were last in last year. They had the fewest 15-plus yard runs. So elusiveness, big plays, 2 things Jets were bad at last year. He's great at. So there's a lot I like about Carter.
Somebody's asking, and I agree with you again. Like, it wasn't necessarily the biggest need. Somebody in the chat said, "Oh yeah, Salah said that." They were going to take him with one of their 2 third-round picks. Again, don't look too much into that stuff because they're never going to call the guy on the phone and be like, "Yeah, you know what? We were really hoping this guy fell you fell, so we took you, but we're not very happy with the pick. You know, they're not gonna not hype him up and be like, yeah, we're it's a B pick for us. Like, you're not an A plus. So, but overall, for where he fell, like, he's the 4th or 5th best running back in the draft. You can argue him versus Sermon versus Gainwell, who apparently wasn't very impressive at his pro day, gained some weight and things like that. So people weren't thrilled with him. So I'm cool with the pick of Michael Carter for sure. And like Sabo was kind of, indicating whatever. I think some of the conceptions around Carter may be a little bit false. Not going to give it away yet, but I like some things of his game more than others, and I dislike some things of his game more than others who hype it up to be great, which I don't see. Teaser, yeah, it's coming. It's coming soon. Today is Thursday. I should have that out Monday, Tuesday. I would think another show, an article on Michael Carter. So stick around for that. Somebody else asked something else in the chat, but somebody asked about P. Ryan. That's another group. Like, we're talking about wide receiver. We're talking about offensive line to a certain extent with some of the depth, like with guys like Hogan or Hodge or whatever it is. But running back is another position. Like, P. Ryan is a 4th round pick next year. You're assuming, you're obviously Carter's making it. And we'll talk about all these position battles down the road, but we'll kind of get into this, I guess, a little bit now without fully delving into it. But you have Carter, who's going to make it. You have Ty Johnson, who I think is a lock, to be completely honest. He was good when he played last year. And I think you have 3 guys battling for 2 spots between, Adams, Coleman, and P. Ryan. I think if Coleman is a 2019 Coleman, he definitely makes it because he's a really good receiving back. And overall, he's explosive, good fit for the outside zone, knows the system. So what are your guys' thoughts on those? Like, kind of, do you think it's 3 battling for 2? Do you think it's, 3 battling for 1? Like, what do you think the running back room looks like? And do you think, if you had to guess now, is P. Ryan going to be the odd man out of that group?
Yeah, I do think P. Ryan definitely isn't a lock. I hesitate to say he is going to be the guy who gets cut just because he was a pick last year, but I also think there's a possibility he was a Gase pick in the sense he was selected for that scheme, more of an inside zone type of guy. But to me, if I were making the decision, he would be my cut. I think definitely the other 4 guys offer more. Adams and Johnson both played great when they got in last year. Coleman brings the receiving versatility of the group that really none of the other guys bring as much, the ability to line up in the slot. And Carter obviously is making the team. So to me, I think he would be my cut. Will he end up being cut? I'm not sure. Maybe Adams is the guy just because even though he played well last year, it was a small sample. So I think it's definitely a possibility, but I don't know. Do you guys think he is going to be the one who gets cut?
I don't know, but I'm with both of you guys. I think it comes down to Adams and P. Ryan.
I agree with you. I would probably say P. Ryan over Adams.
Tevin Coleman's always hurt too, so
yeah.
He's going to have to stay healthy in August.
That's what I said. It's a battle between 3 because like Coleman's 2019 Coleman healthy. Okay, bring him in because of the pass blocking, the versatility that he offers in outside zone, receiving back, things like that. But if he's healthy, you'd assume he's number 3. Or number 2 with Ty Johnson, whatever it is, however they're going to divvy that up. But I think it's really between Josh Adams and P. Ryan, who P. Ryan might not be the best fit. And to be completely honest, I was really disappointed in some of his runs last year in terms of his vision and things like that. But maybe Douglas doesn't want to give up on a 4th round pick so early. But at the same time, if you're faithful in Douglas, I mean, we want him to do what he's supposed to do. If he sees that the pick doesn't work out, it didn't work out, cut him. If you think Josh Adams is a better player, so it's going to be an interesting battle. Somebody asked on the channel, I guess who's either relatively new or just watched this as a live stream, Shadow's asking if we explain things on our website like stunts. Yes, I just went to pivot steps and drive steps and stop steps and all this stuff with Elijah Moore and what else we talked about freaking stair steps and hop steps. Yes, we talk about stunts. So he's asking, Sabo, do you want to just, I guess in a really broad overview, what is a stunt?
A lot of defensive coordinators call it a game. Also, it's when 2 defensive linemen work together to try to deceive the offensive linemen. So they'll exchange gaps. things along those lines. There's a lot of variations, but that's basically the broad view.
Yeah, the most broad is it's pretty much okay. You have a guy lined up in the A gap, a guy lined up in the B gap. Let's just say it's a guard who is looking towards his left, isn't expecting the picker or a guy to basically run full steam ahead into the offensive lineman who's caught off guard, and now you're really opening up that A gap. Typically, you pulled away from it, so you're pulling the center away. You're isolating that guard. Now, one guy the guard is focused on one guy. A guy picks him, basically runs into him. And then another guy loops around into that A gap. So it's just
like the defense's version of a pick play on offense, basically.
Yeah, pretty much. So we explain a lot more than stunts. So yes, we'll bring up that coffee house stunts and NCA blitzes and yes, that's literally what we're here to do. So that is a definite. If we didn't know what a stunt was, we'd have serious issues, I think, promoting our brand.
Watch Blewett's videos. I'm telling you, the terminology you'll pick up.
Appreciate that.
That's the key.
So maybe we should do that eventually. Somebody said, okay, I'm getting it. Hey, as long as you have a section that explains things, maybe we should do like a terminology thing and show examples of terminology eventually.
Oh man, that's a project. But yeah,
how many weeks? How many weeks do we have before the season starts?
There are some dead months. There are a lot of dead months. So, I mean, the things we have to do, Nania, what do you think the first thing is? The player profiles, right? The new incoming player profiles are probably the first thing. But yeah, that's a good idea. That's a really good idea.
Yeah.
What was the website I've seen that does the terminology?
I don't know. But yeah, like I said, there's probably like 16 weeks before the first preseason game. And I have to do 20 film reviews, so to have time to break down individually what it is. Just watch the shows about guys you're interested in, and each one of those shows you'll pick up terminology, and I'll explain things for the most part. Some things I might skip over. I think it's a little bit simple, but we'll talk for sure. Just watch those videos. Verge says I've learned an enormous amount from Jets X Factor. Hell yes. Go watch. Definitely make sure to watch the Elijah Moore thing. I think you also pick up a lot about his game and terminology in that as well. Moving on to the next pick, we all are in agreement that we pretty much liked the first 4 picks. And now after hitting the offense hard, the first 4 picks, the Jets delve into the defense. They needed 2 things really, really, really badly on defense, and we all agreed doing our pre-draft show: linebacker, corner. Absolutely massive needs for the Jets. Sitting there, the 146th pick of the draft, they draft a safety. That's what we see it on the board as, and we're like, what are they doing? Like, they already have 3 guys, like another safety. We obviously need a linebacker. Come to figure out, the Jets announced Jamie and Sherwood as a linebacker for the Jets. You're assuming he's going to play that will role, a guy who is not necessarily great in coverage, not the best mover. So you're going to flex him down into the box. They've had some success with mid-round guys under both Ulbrich and Saleh. So Nana, hit you first. What are your thoughts on the Sherwood pick, and have you watched any of them, or like quick thoughts about him?
Yeah, I think this is definitely at this point the type of pick that made the most sense, because a lot of the more pure linebackers I think had gone off the board by that point. So this is a pick that made sense. And also they went after Keanu Neal in free agency. So that kind of tipped off that they might be into this sort of player, a hybrid safety linebacker type of guy, which is pretty similar to Atlanta's starting middle linebacker last season under Jeff Ulbrich, who was their linebackers coach and then defensive coordinator. Aluakon, their starting middle linebacker, is this kind of guy. He is 215 pounds, was the lightest linebacker in the league last season, played safety in high school, and was one of the most versatile linebackers in the league in terms of playing in the slot, at safety, things like that. So this is, I think, something that Ulbrich is probably a big part of shooting for, this safety linebacker type of hybrid. So it seemed like this would be something on the radar based on the Neal move. And then after some of the other linebackers went off the board, like Jabril Cox, Jamin Davis, Usu Koromoa, that this would be a route they would go to fill that position. And it makes sense because safety, a guy who has played safety and is sort of a tweener, gives them what they need. They need range. They need versatility, coverage ability, next to Mosley and Jarrad Davis. So this was a route that I think was definitely on the table. The Nasruddin pick later on, I actually going into day 3 thought he was the guy they might go after. He slipped a little bit. So Sherwood definitely, and both him and Nasruddin, their competition for that starting linebacker spot is going to be really interesting to watch.
I like the idea. I mean, you could see what he's trying to do. Versatile defense. You know, as you mentioned, Blewett, Salah's a guy who loves to leave base against 11. So it's the new wave of the NFL. Have a Will who could cover, a safety who could play man. You know, Joyner could walk down on the slot if you have to do it. You don't want to, but if you have to. I like the idea. You could see the idea unfolding. Sherwood's the one guy where I've sort of dug into the film, and off the bat, he has a lot of work to do in terms of converting to linebacker. We'll see. It's still early. I still got to look at a lot more, but he's, you know, the way he tackles, he's a lunger. He's got to keep his feet at linebacker. He's going to have to change that. Maybe it's just looking at him in a DB role where it's everything's slow. Sometimes the effort wasn't there in the Ole Miss game. I don't want to hammer
space.
him. Yeah, I don't want to hammer him completely because I love the idea, and I you know, we'll see. Nasruddin, but Cashman, I guess Cashman's a de facto Will right now, right?
Yeah, he had. Yeah, there's no way to Sam. Yeah.
You know, so we'll see. We'll see with Sherwood and Nasruddin. I got to look at Nasruddin next, I think, to really get a better idea. But I'm cool with it. But we'll see what unfolds. We'll see if he takes to the transition.
Yeah, Shadow in the chat. Definitely just tune into some of the shows, the film breakdowns. We do this, but this is a secondary thing to the film stuff, and the numbers that Nania puts out, and the film as well. And then Sabo is kind of a master of all. So yeah, and in terms of Sherwood, like I agree with you. Like there's some times, and it's like there are times where like I want to see him stick his face into the fire a little bit in terms of like pile-ups and things like that, and like lay shots. Like he's a hard hitter at times, but there's times he's a little bit hesitant. Like he'll fill a gap and like hesitate to pull the trigger, and then a guy will run by him. And in terms of like seeing the safety of the linebacker, watching his film, and I'll break it all down. I was a little bit disappointed in terms of the athlete that I think he is. I think he's a little bit boxy. I think there's some angles he took at the college level that aren't going to work in the NFL. So you're not looking at like a Deion Jones, you know, a Devin White. Like you're not looking at that rangy athletic linebacker. Like he's actually for a Will, like he's decent speed, but he's definitely not like a burner or super fluid guy. Like he is definitely a little bit, I would say the first pick I was a little bit disappointed in watching his film, to be completely honest. So not huge on the pick. I get the thinking, but we'll see how it works out. Like I like the communication. I like how he's, you know, smart. I think some of the things that going around about him being smart are kind of just the role he's asked to play and have been a little bit overblown, to be completely honest, which we'll break down.
Where would you rank his athleticism versus Cashman?
Cashman's a better athlete to me. Faster,
way faster.
Yeah, faster. I would say his hips are more fluid. I would say his lateral ability, he's quicker than him. He's definitely boxy. Like he has struggled. He has struggled turning his hips and moving. Like his tackle radius, even his long arms, because he's not overly flexible. He's gonna have trouble bringing some guys down. And again, there was angles, and it's all about translatable stuff. Like one good run by Michael Carter, where he hits the gap that's open, might look great at that level. But if I see him not pressing to the outside to move the linebacker who's coming in pursuit and then hit the angle, like things like that, I know it's not necessarily translatable. So I see him take some angles at the college level where I'm like, in the NFL versus a good running back, he's not making that tackle. So it might look great on film here at Auburn, but it's all about what you bring to the NFL. So I think
you just hope with him that it's less space. I know it's faster, but less space, because he was in the SEC, the defense he's playing DB, less space helps him out with the position change.
Yeah, for sure, because he's definitely not a great athlete. That is for sure. Like Nasruddin, like you might be able to flex him a little bit into safety, like some roles, which I doubt they're going to do a ton because they have a ton of guys. But like you do not want Sherwood playing any safety at all for you. And I think he definitely thrived more in the box. Like if he was just a safety pick, I would have been very disappointed. But overall, like I'm not very, very high on his film. We'll break it down. I still have to get a lot more into it. I've watched it a game or two, but it's something I have to delve into a little bit more. Nana, did we even get in? We asked you about Sherwood, right? I don't know if you were watching any of the tape. Yeah. Me and Nania, Sabo just talked for like 10 minutes. I'm not even sure if we got
Blewett asked.
Yeah, I started out with them. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So moving on to the next pick again, Sherwood. When people say, "Oh, he's smart. He's a great mover, great closing speed, great deep speed," I don't see that at all. Maybe I'm just completely off.
I think he ran like a 4.75, so I mean, it lines up with what
It
you're
shows
saying.
he's not faster than a 4.7 guy to me. I see that on film. I do. So maybe he's a little bit disappointing. Maybe he could have
4.76.
Maybe he could have ran a 4.6. Like maybe that was a bad day for him. But I don't give a shit if you run fast in a 40 and underwear. It's all about the translatable stuff to the NFL field. It just is. So yeah, he's all right to me. I'm not overly high on it. The next pick, 8 picks later. Again, now they address linebacker going into to the next pick, needing in a corner badly at this point, biggest need on the team, and it still is. Michael Carter the second, which, by the way, I get all the jokes, I get the Spider-Man meme, but it is getting so tired. Bringing up,
it's like this thing. It's like so easy to make a joke about it, but it's not really funny. It's like it's just it's like okay.
I want to see
no jokes to be made.
I want to see uniqueness. You know, if you use the same name or meme all over every time, it's tired. Give me something new.
Yeah, and like somebody's brought up in the chat, like the funny thing about it is like one of them went to Duke and Carolina. They're rivals. Like I get that, but like every single interview, like let's say it's on the Jets website, whatever it is, it's like 2 of the 6 minutes of their interview where I want to learn stuff about them and how their game translates to safety versus corner, all this stuff. There's like, oh well, how do you feel about another Michael Carter getting drafted? It's like, oh, it's like. It gets so tired and it's not funny. It's like almost getting like the Blewett last name jokes. Like if you come up with something new, I'll laugh my ass off. It's funny. But like saying, "Oh, you Joe Blewett," I'm like, "Cool, I heard that in 4th grade, bro." Like,
I can't say anything because they got me on the first day when I was doing the jersey numbers. I mixed up 30 and 32.
You screwed me up. I went on Twitter and I was like, "Yo, Michael Carter can't wear 30." And then
I know. They got me on the first day. I was like, I knew it was gonna happen, but I was just hoping it was like October or November. But
yeah, no, the whole Michael Carter thing is definitely old already, like super, super old. And in practice, you're going to see it a bunch from the beat writers because like it's just an easy joke. Not to crap on the beat writers because Sabo kind of is like he's always there. You need to get some scoops. We need some scoops from Sabo. But going on to the that pick, what are your thoughts on him? The film, the stats, all that stuff. Nania, we'll go with you first because you were in the background a lot of that Sherwood conversation.
I do like this one. He's probably my favorite pick of the cornerbacks that they selected. I think slot was a need too because they haven't re-signed Poole yet. Right now, Guidry is your starter there, who I like, but undrafted free agent who started 2 games. It's hard to rely on that too much. So, but Carter the second, he had really, really good slot numbers in terms of his slot coverage. His athletic profile is great, a lot of speed. So he is definitely one of my favorite picks that they made. He was also consistent throughout his career. That's a big thing. It's not like he was a breakout guy. He was great for really the last 3 years of his career with Duke, so that I like. But his slot coverage numbers are awesome. So, and just from the little that I've watched, it seems pretty translatable. We'll see. He's a very small guy. So, but I do like him to compete in the slot with Guidry and also probably Eccles.
Yeah, these last few guys I have not seen enough on film yet to really get into that stuff. But in terms of position, yeah, I mean, I like it. I like it. He can play safety as well. He's a slot corner. Nania, right off the bat, who do you think will win that job, Guidry or Carter?
It's tough, and I think Eccles probably can be in that mix too because of his size.
So,
to be honest, I feel like I just did a Guidry review. I kind of like what he did last season. I don't know if you agree, Joe, but I feel like Guidry will take it. But I mean, it's too small of a sample for him to have the advantage just based on the seniority. But I think Carter definitely has a good chance to win it. But I would go with Guidry.
Yeah, Guidry played it was like 3 games he started or something like that. Like
he started 2 games and he played most of the Miami game, replacing Davis got hurt, Millette played safety, and he went into the slot.
And he looked decent too. Like he played pretty well. Like he wasn't out of place. So you bring him
Raiders
in.
Game actually that was Raiders, Seahawks, and Rams. He played.
So you have him, and then you have Carter, and which is why I don't think they're bringing back Poole because you don't want like 3 slot guys necessarily. And Eccles, like from what I've watched, and we'll get to him. He's a little bit tight for me to be a slot guy. Like I think he's an outside guy, which for his size I don't necessarily love. I just can't really see him mirroring guys like fluid footwork and hips and things like that. I just can't really see him handling it. So I think he's an outside guy, but like maybe they're hoping he's like a Jason Verrett. Like he's smaller, maybe he could play some off coverage, but like, he's explosive in a straight line. But from what I've seen, like horizontally, not the best athlete. So it would definitely be concerning to see him versus guys, in the slot, whether it be like a Jamison Crowder of the world or Elijah Moore, whoever it may be. Obviously, we're not going to be playing those guys unless something goes really, really wrong. Maybe Jamison Crowder, but if we're playing against Moore this year, we have some issues. I think somebody asked about Ashton Davis. He's a guy who can play all around. Again, watching that film review, myself and Marcus Coleman, we both spoke about it. He was super, super, super raw coming out of Cal. Yeah. That was a future pick, so they need to develop him. Should he be in the slot over Deidre and those guys? No. Now, big nickel look, whatever it may be. Will he fill that at times? Yes, he'll line up there, but he's not a slot corner. That's not what he is.
No, if someone's walking down, it's Joyner.
Yeah. So I think Davis has a versatility though. So we'll see. But overall, I agree with Nani. Like I think the numbers match the film on Carter. Like watching him, I was pretty impressed. To be honest. So pretty technically sound, willing tackler. He'll stick his face in the fan. I know there's some missed tackles statistically, right, Nania?
Yeah, but he did have some missed tackle problems.
But then again,
not horrible, but a little bit.
But then again, I don't know where the stat came from. Maybe Nani could tell me. This was when Blake Cashman was drafted. Like, oh, he didn't miss any tackles. The third snap I watched of Blake Cashman, he missed a tackle. I was like, what are you talking about? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't even know if I've seen that one, so I'm not sure about that one.
Yeah, that came about somewhere. But I like Michael Carter. Again, all these film reviews are coming, but overall, that gives it a thumbs up from me. Michael Carter, the second. MC squared, all this stupid shit you're hearing now. 21 picks later, another corner. Jason Panock, a guy who is very, very different than Michael Carter. Nani, we'll keep hitting you first with these because Sabo admittedly, which I think our viewers appreciate, and we do like to preface this stuff by saying we have to dig more into these guys, but it's only been 2 weeks. So yeah. Panock, numbers wise, what are you seeing with this player?
Yeah, so he's interesting because I feel like he's a projection sort of pick because the production wasn't great. He gave up 15 touchdowns last 3 seasons, 5 in each year, so he also didn't really progress. And it's kind of very hot. The one good thing is that he's a lot of press coverage experience. He played the highest percentage of his snaps last season were press. And most of it was press bail. It's not like he's playing press man. They were a zone-heavy defense, so that makes him a good fit. He has good size and good length, but the production wasn't great. He gave up a lot of big plays. The completion percentage he gave up was pretty low. He did do a good job of contesting the ball, getting deflections, stuff like that, but he gave up a lot of touchdowns and a lot of big gains. So the production with him is probably the worst of any player that they drafted in this class, but the physical tools are really good. Yeah. And the scheme fit, I think, is solid too. So I think they're definitely going for a projection pick with him. And really his overall athletic profile is great because he's 6 foot 204, and he also has pretty good quickness numbers for a size 2. I think he had one of the best athletic scores of the quarterbacks in this class. I think
it showed up
best. Yeah. So I think it's a projection pick. A lot of great tools to work with, but the production wasn't there yet.
Yeah, the only thing I could say about this one is he kind of, like Nadia said, his athletic profile, he fits what Salah likes on the outside. He's comfortable, press to bail. He's comfortable doing that stuff. And he's longer than his height, right? Like his arms are pretty long compared to his 6 foot height, I think.
That's what I saw. I don't know about the numbers.
Yeah, his wingspan is 87th percentile. Height is 70th. So
yeah, so that fits Salah's outside corner. So it makes sense.
It's been interesting to see, because I think Eccles is another guy who's like an outside guy, but Eccles, I would argue you don't necessarily want him pressing because of his size. But if it's a press bail, if he's going to bail immediately, then it's not a huge deal. But and Panock, I'm really early into that review. I think I did 1 game. The press is definitely there. Obviously, there's footwork things, he tends to sit back, maybe a false step, maybe a jump split, things that I'll show. But overall, he's strong as hell. He's long. He's fast. He's fluid. So like Johnny said, he is a projection type pick, but I like the bet. And I think bringing in a guy like Richard Sherman, this is who would really benefit from a Sherman, Panock, Hall type players. So I don't think Sherman's going to come here. I really do think maybe it'll be, what's his name, who caves in, just blank out on his name. We've been talking
Nelson.
About so many freaking names. Yeah. Nelson, maybe he caves in, but I don't think Sherman's going to come back or come to the East Coast for a team who's not ready to win. Somebody's talking about
which Panock game did you watch? Just out of curiosity, I want to see. How
whatever I'm pretty sure we share all the same college film. Whatever the first game was on that available, I forget what it was. Like I'll give it to you in a second once we go. But I didn't see so I saw the athleticism. I didn't see and you hear about him getting beat deep. You hear about his lack of ball skills, things like that. I didn't see that yet. But again, I watched one game, and that's the problem with some people do is like just in terms of scouting in general. Like a lot of these people who do 400 scouting reports, they watch 2 games. And is that enough of a guy? Like I can give you 2 good Kyle Wilson games. I can give you 2 good Buster Screen games. If you just call it those 2 games, you don't know enough about a guy. Buster Screen had 2 good games in a row.
He had some
I
really
just can't
good
believe
games.
we had a Buster Screen call out right now.
I'm just saying in terms of inconsistency, like you could find 2 good games of anybody. I could find 2 good games in a row of Geno Smith. It's out there.
For sure.
So when people only watch 2 games and they think they know a player, that's a lot of the problem with like Justin Fields. Like, okay, if you're gonna watch Justin Fields versus Clemson, he would be the number 1 pick in the draft over Trevor Lawrence, but that's not the case. You got to go through all of his games. So that's what we try to do here, obviously. But yeah, Nani, I'll get that to you in a second. Overall, I like the pick. I'm again, these are guys we don't necessarily know. Like we had all the guys, like we were doing all the mock drafts and all these things. So we saw guys, whoever it may be, Kerry Vincent Jr. from LSU. Just we saw those names, we automatically associate them with better players. Doesn't mean they are, obviously. Who could have expected, Trey Smith to fall to the 7th round? Like that stuff happens. So that's why the mock drafts are pretty stupid. But the next pick, which is, I would say for the later round picks, is generally the favorite picks or the favorite pick from fans, from a lot of people, from analysts. 11 picks later, the start of the 6th round, Hamza Nasruddin, the safety, again, he's converting into linebacker for the Jets, will play Will. What are your guys' thoughts on that? Nania, again, we'll go to you first.
Yeah, I do like this one probably more than Sherwood. I think he has more to offer in terms of athleticism. And his production is also better. He was pretty good throughout the entirety of his career. His missed tackle numbers are pretty low. There's a lot to like with him. I think injuries are part of the reason he slipped. He was probably more of like a 3rd round, 4th round type of guy. But both him and Sherwood had that versatility. For Hamza, he was he stayed back a little bit more in terms of playing safety, in terms of how his snaps were charted, while Sherwood was a little more versatile in terms of playing linebacker more often, but Hamza definitely played plenty of it. So I like him. He has a really versatile resume in terms of the numbers. Also watching him, you could definitely see there's a little more in terms of fluidity, just agility compared to Sherwood. But the numbers are good. Low with the missed tackles, coverage is solid, run defense is solid. So this is probably, I definitely prefer him to Sherwood in terms of upside.
Did he when you saw him, did he play a lot? Did you say he played a lot of deep safety?
He still moved around a lot, but he played a little bit of it.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I'm with you. Again, I like the idea of what they're doing with the defense. It's versatile and it's deep up front. So, hey.
Yeah. Nani, by the way, the game, unless I just forgot it, I think it was NC State. I watched Panock versus, I don't know if that helps, but
okay.
Yeah, so with Hamza, I think he said the other day, people call him Ha or whatever it is. So Ham? No, they call him Ham.
Ham.
They call him Ham. So maybe if you want to refer to him that instead of Hamza Nasruddin, which isn't that hard anymore. But once you first see it, you're like, how do you say that? But yeah, watching him, and yeah, I agree with Nani. Like he definitely played more deep than Sherwood played, in my opinion. Like Sherwood at 2nd, 3rd down was like in the slot or in the box, just in general. Hamza, to me, while like maybe you see some more like issues with maybe like pursuit angles, whatever it may be, I think his athleticism is much more translatable to be an effective linebacker than Sherwood. Like Sherwood is a guy who I think to be effective is going to have to be really smart in getting to spots because he doesn't have great athleticism in terms of, the fluidity, the acceleration, his top end speed. Again, there's people out there who are saying it's better than 4.7. I don't see it being better than 4.7, to be completely honest. I think that's kind of what matches. And I know Hamza dropped to the 6th round, but a lot of people were saying before, if he came out the 2019 year, again, who was applauded for being a leader, he got injured, tore his ACL, traveled with the team, worked his ass off to play the 2 games. He got a pick in that game. You saw the whole sideline come out and applaud him and, do all that stuff. So you like that part of him. But apparently it was because of the injury. and it was because of his poor testing numbers. I don't think he had the best combine, or as good of a combine as some people were expecting. So it made him drop down the board. But watching him, he's a good athlete. Like maybe his testing numbers weren't good or great, but he's a good athlete. That's for sure. Like fluidity, vertical, he can smack guys. Like he's definitely a hitter, aggressive as hell. So I agree with a lot of people out there, like Hamza, in terms of like the value. Like I love that pick. We're already having the jokes in here. Hamza's going to go ham and all this stuff. Of course, yeah, but call him Ham if you can't pronounce the name, because that's apparently what he was called at FSU and all this stuff. So really, really good pick. I'm really excited to do that film review. I think all of us have like 12 games of his 2019. So we have like a ton of film to do on him to 2019. The 2 games we have available, 2020, he wasn't playing in, but we have enough to get a really good feel from him and what he was in 2019. Next pick. Somebody else brought up Matt Loviano, his arm length, 34-inch arms, which is good to have too. Or he didn't put it. The way he laid out the sentence really screwed me up. His length to 34-inch arms is such a good to have. You really, Matt, you just made me trip over my words. But yeah, he has 34-inch arms. I think it's actually 34.5-inch arms, which is good for a tackle. Like that's a good number for a tackle.
Who's this?
Hamza, 34.5-inch arms. Yeah, his arms are freaking
98th percentile for safeties.
Which in terms of playing in the box, shedding blocks, getting your hands on first, which is super important in football, he has that. And I think Sherwood has 34-inch arms too. So you're getting guys with good like athletic profiles in terms of like their height, weight stuff. But I just think Hamza, in terms of the actual athleticism, like fluidity and stuff, and actual speed, I think he blows Sherwood out of the water. In my opinion, I don't know if you guys agree with me. Nani, do you agree with that?
Yeah, I agree.
I still gotta watch Ham, my good old Ham, but yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Moving on to the next pick, the second to last pick, the pick, 6th round, 200 overall, which wasn't an original pick. Brandon Eccles, who I put out like immediately, because I remember there's a guy from Kentucky, and I looked it up, and like I don't know if you guys saw a video of like him getting pushed and he plays dead, and then people resuscitate him on the field. I remember it was Kentucky. I just didn't know who it was, and it actually ended up being him. So that blew up a little bit. But another corner pick, obviously, they're taking a couple of dart throws here. If one of them hit and could be a role player to a starter for the 5th or 6th round, you'd be happy with that, even though I would say that I think Carter is going to be a role player, at least, if not a starter. Like, I really like Carter. I think it's been between Panock and Eccles, like which one of those guys is going to be a role player, which one's going to work out. And if either one of them do, it's a successful pick. So what was your thoughts or what are your thoughts on Eccles, Nania?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because he played pretty much exclusively outside in college, but he doesn't really have the outside size. He's only 5'10", 179, and his length isn't good either. So he has the frame to play the slot, but like you said, Joe, maybe that doesn't fit his skill set. Maybe the outside is where he's best, but he also doesn't have the frame for it. So he is a little bit of a tweener in that way. And his production is really interesting because in 2019, he had really, really good numbers, which was his first year at Kentucky after transferring from junior college. And then this past season, his numbers went way down. He gave up a ton of big plays. So it was interesting to see his numbers kind of take that dive. And a big part of it was plays on the ball. He had, I think, 9 pass breakups in 2019. Then he had 0 this year. So his numbers took a step back this year, which was interesting. But the biggest thing with him is where he's going to play. Is he going to stay outside like he did at Kentucky? Can he last with that size, or is he in transition into the slot? So that'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, where he plays, and think about the cornerback battle this summer. I mean, there's a lot of bodies. So if we were to pick who would make the team right now, I think that's an impossible task. I mean, it's going to be.
Hall is the only lock. Hall and Guidry are probably locks.
Yeah,
that's
those
it.
are probably.
Not including the rookies.
Right. But it's going to be. I mean, linebacker to a degree, but corner is going to be the most interesting one, I think.
Yeah, corner, and it's what happens when you actually get a team.
Yes.
Now we have battle, and obviously corner's not a great position, but
there's just
now you have now you have corner, now you have receiver, now you have offensive line, to battles, you have running back, even tight end to a certain extent with Yeboah coming in versus Daniel Brown and all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Eccles, from what I've seen, again, I watched 2 games. I think I want to have 3 of 2020. Maybe I'll dabble a little bit into 2019. So far, I'm not impressed, to be completely honest. Like, I rather in the later rounds take like these shots on these really great athletes, and he is a good athlete in terms of like straight line explosion, acceleration, vertical, that stuff. But like in terms of like the translatable stuff, fluidity, all that, I didn't really see it. And a lot of his stuff that I watched so far at Kentucky was like him on the backside of concepts and like press bail, like on a cover 3, and him just not being involved in the play. Obviously, the size, he gets thrown around a little bit, like versus bigger receivers at the catch point. It's just not going to happen for him in the NFL. He's just too small. And then in terms of like the run game, I just don't really think he could fill. He definitely will get trucked over by bigger running backs or even medium-sized running backs in the NFL, maybe even small guys. I'm not very high on him from what I've watched so far. Again, I have to dive in more. Maybe I'll look a little bit more into 2019 when Nania said he was better. But I'm not crazy about the Eccles pick. I'd rather take like the Panock pick was the guy I want, like the guy who's a legitimate translatable athlete, who Salah can develop. But again, it could work out. I'm just not overly high on Eccles, to be completely honest. Last pick, 7 picks later of the one of the later picks of the 6th round, I think. Actually, I think the 6th round goes like 220 or whatever it is. But Jonathan Marshall, defensive tackle. What were your thoughts, Nania?
Yeah, I think this is definitely a worthy gamble. At this point, it doesn't really – obviously, this is their strongest position on the team, least position of need. But it's a 6th round, so you just take shots. And you don't know about the future of this position with Franklin Myers, Fatukasi, Rankins, all up in the air in terms of long-term contract situation. So it can be a need down the line. But Marshall, it's all about the athleticism. I think he has the 2nd best relative athletic score ever for a defensive tackle, which is pretty awesome. He has above average size, but he also put up like ridiculous numbers in pretty much everything. So he's a great athlete. He only had, I think, 1.5 career sacks, but that's misleading because his pressure numbers were pretty high last season. I think he was top 10 to 15, somewhere around there. So this is a really good project pick. I like it. And he played a lot of, even though he's not the biggest guy and he's really a great athlete, he mostly played nose tackle. That was his most common position.
Yeah,
so
is he a one tech?
No, he's a 3 tech.
He's definitely
he played a lot of nose, but also at 3 too. So he's a good fit, I think, in terms of having the one gap explosion for this scheme. So I think he's a good developmental pick, 6th round.
Sabo.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And he's a big boy too, right? 310. And so he's definitely a 3 tech, huh? You're saying?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I don't think he's not going to be able to hold up for his combos and stuff inside.
So on the roster, who do they have who could play 1 tech? Foley,
Q, Shepard,
Q,
Rankins at times. You know, Rankins gets moved
Rankins.
off his spot a lot too, though. Like I wouldn't prefer him inside either. So
yeah, they're kind of late there, to be honest. But yeah, I mean, listen, at this point in the draft, worth the gamble for sure.
Yeah, but like obviously, like on pass downs, like you could have Q or you know Rankins inside, and then or JFM or whatever it is. I'm talking about 1 tech specifically. So even if Foley has to just lock down that 0-1 tech, how much is he really going to play? Let's say max 50%. So you don't
need a lot of depth there. I'm just kind of surprised there's not anher body, to be honest.
There's going to be some games where it's bigger offensive linemen where some of the Jets sets that they deploy on defense, they will get moved. For sure, like with Rankins and Franklin Myers, who's a decent run defender, but like he's not an overly great run defender. Like Lawson, like there's gonna be some times where like if you're attacking the Jets, like run to the side where Lawson and either Jonathan Marshall or whoever it is on. Who Marshall's obviously if he sees any snaps this year, which I don't think he's not really gonna see a lot. I think primarily like use him to penetrate the B gap. I could see him being used as a picker on stunts a lot because of that explosion in a straight line gets that pick set earlier, allows your guy to loop quicker. So I think that's going to happen at times because, where he does, Salah does like to let his guys win one-on-ones and gaps, but there's obviously stunts as well. Like there's not going to not be stunts in this defense. So I think that's what's going to happen. Some people are talking about Borgalis and some of the kickers. To be honest, I would have took Borgalis with the Eccles pick and been happy with Jonathan Marshall. Like I'm fine with that because I like the Marshall pick more than Eccles because like we were talking about, like in the late rounds, you want to take these shots on these guys who may be raw, but are physical freaks. Like Nania was talking about, what was it like? In terms of like, it was like since like 1980, he was number 2 in recent athleticism or whatever, RAS. I forget the actual term is.
Relative athleticism.
Yeah. He's like 2 out of like 1,300 defensive tackles. Like he's a freak. So if you're looking at the Jets defensive line and how they develop guys over the years, like that's what we developed most out of anything. Obviously new coaching staff, so it's not necessarily translatable, but I'm fine with the shot in it. And we didn't even talk about this in terms of like the battles, but now you have him on the defensive line too. Like, does he move a guy, maybe like a Nathan Shepard off the roster?
Yeah.
And obviously it's not the same exact position, but like now does Kyle Phillips make it? Like there's only so many spots on that defensive line. So it's gonna be interesting, but I think we all like to pick physical freak. It's fine. If he's going to be a guy who plays 30% of the snaps, but he makes an impact because he's explosive, great for a 6th-round pick, Now let's move. Somebody said Jets front 7 are lethal. Somebody responded Jets front 7 or front 4. It's more the front 4 than the front 7.
Yeah.
You could say 5 of the 7 are good. I'm more optimistic about what Mosley will be coming back, to be completely honest, than maybe some other people are. Obviously there'd be some adjustment period, but I never really thought he won with athleticism. He won with his mind, and unless he just completely lost it, he doesn't have dementia. So I think he'll be pretty good. But yeah, we have questions at Sam and at Will. That's primary. So now we're gonna move on to the UDFAs. We got about 20 minutes. We're gonna keep these to about 2 hours when we do the 3 of us, because we're gonna try to do these maybe twice a month, maybe once a month. We'll see depending on schedules, but we'll get to the UDFAs. We'll hit the big 5. I would say it is right now. Maybe there's a 6th guy who is worth talking about. I know there's some tackles that some people like. Moving on to those, the number 1 guy who has everybody excited, or who everybody's excited about, Kenny Yeboah. Nani, what did you see from him? Do you think it's translatable? Do you think he can compete for a roster spot? Because Kyle did not like Yeboah, and the chat attacked him. They attacked him last week.
What did he say about him?
Kyle definitely gets into like the nitty gritty with the film and stuff, and like he wasn't happy with like him technically wise,
right?
In terms of like catching the ball and attacking the ball, and like his willingness as a blocker at times and all that stuff. But like I kind of like said, like he's a UDFA. Like we got to look at it relatively. He wasn't a 4th-round pick, so watching him again, I have the whole film review wrapped up with him. I said I'd do it. There's translatable stuff, the speed to stretch the seam. There are times where he's maybe a little bit not unwilling, but he doesn't put the most effort into like split blocking. I think that's sifter. But like then you also see him insert versus a linebacker and kick him out. So he has some capability. He has to get stronger. He has to get better technically. I want to see him attack balls better. There definitely were some plays. I saw him over the middle, arming balls instead of like going up with one arm, kind of like, not trying to take that shot from a linebacker that I didn't love. So, and a lot of his routes weren't like, okay, square cutting, leaning into a guy, holding his line, stacking a guy. Like, it wasn't a lot of that. It was a lot of like, run a curl or a hitch in a soft spot of the zone and catch the ball and get yacked. So it wasn't like a lot of translatable stuff. So overall, I like the athleticism. I think he has a good shot to make the team, to be honest. But people are like, oh, he should have been a 5th or 6th-round pick. Maybe he should have been, but let's not hype him up too much. But overall, I do like him. Like, I think he should be right now the tight end room. I would say probably, if I had to guess, it's probably Herndon. Wesco, I think, is a lock. Whether it be tight end, fullback, I think he's a lock. I think Nani would agree with me. He's better than people think he is in terms of blocking. Yeah. You have Croft, who's a lock. I would say, and I think the battle for the 4th spot is what Yeboah, Daniel Brown, and there's somebody else in there too, right? Yeah, Griffin, who you could save some money. So, Nani, what are your thoughts on Yeboah?
Yeah, he was definitely a guy I was looking at, like 5th, 6th round, just because he had such great production last year. It was definitely interesting to put him in that mix, especially with Yak. I think that's the main thing that we wanted at tight end, a guy who can make plays with the ball in his hands, and he did have some of the best Yak numbers at tight end last year. But again, like you said, Joe, he's an undrafted free agent, so let's not get on him too much. There's a reason he wasn't drafted, but I do agree that I think a lot of his production wasn't really translatable. He had a lot of his touchdowns were wide open. And then there isn't much in terms of him actually beating people with his routes. A lot of them are just him sitting down, making plays after the catch. And then with the blocking, there are some willingness issues there, which is important in this offense. We've seen them value it quite a bit, guys who can block. So there are some question marks, but at the end of the day, undrafted free agent, tight end who put up, I believe, over 70 yards a game last year, is a really good athlete, the ball in his hands. It's a worthy shot, and he'll have a chance on a depth chart that doesn't have a lot of proven receiving ability at all. So great, definitely one of my favorite undrafted free agent signings. But at the same time, I could see why he was undrafted, and he's definitely not a lock, but has a good chance.
Yeah, man, Blewett, you said it. Like UDFA and late in the draft, it's all about lottery tickets, and
Yeah.
this guy fits that mold. I mean, and it's hard. It's hard sometimes with tight ends and receivers, especially in the SEC or especially in the Big 12. I should say you don't know what translates because of what goes on in those leagues with all the space. But yeah, I'm on board.
Yeah, there's definitely athleticism there. The speed, the yak is definitely there. But like for a guy that big, like, I definitely want to see him attack the ball more. I don't want to see alligator arming stuff over the middle because that's where you're going to be working, over the middle. So, but yeah, overall, I think he should make the team because they don't necessarily have a target like him. Somebody asked, and I'll throw this to Nania, is Croft the best blocking tight end on the Jets? Croft versus Wesco.
I would say in terms of blocking, like inline blocking, I'd probably give it to Croft. I like Wesco at fullback, but inline blocking, I'd give it to Croft.
Yeah, you had an article on that, right? How Wesco's fullback blocking was so much better than his inline blocking.
Yeah, I think I posted about it a little bit. I don't know if I've done an article, but his fullback blocking I do like. So yeah, in terms of at tight end, I'd give Croft the edge, but Wesco at fullback, I think I think they should give him the ball some more because he showed a lot of elusiveness in college. We haven't really seen him get the chance to show if he can do that in the NFL yet.
At this point, I'm calling him a fullback.
He's a fullback, he definitely has it in terms of when he lines up in the backfield. So I'd give it to Croft at tight end. He's a good inline blocker.
Yeah, I agree with that. And some people are saying they're going to keep 4 tight ends. I agree with that because I think they consider like Wesco like a hybrid fullback, H-back / tight end. So he's a tight end, but he's also been doing a lot of other things. And then you have Croft with his injuries. He's also a good guy. It's like they're gonna carry 4. I think it's a 4 I named before. The next one, which is you can contest either one. Hamlica. I think it's I know it's pronounced on the Jets website. It's not Hamlicar. It's like Hamlica. I think it's Hamlica. You just ignore that R at the end. So it's Hamlica Rashid, the edge from Oregon State, who 2019 like 14 tackles for loss or whatever it was, a bunch of sacks. Apparently he battled some injuries in 2020. Not what your thoughts on him? Obviously he's not necessarily the prototypical 4-3 end for the Jets, but if you're going to play him like 9 tech or like just straight as a straight rusher. On some of these downs, like he'll compete with Huff, I think, for that spot where maybe he gets 20% of the reps. But what are your thoughts on his numbers and then in his game a little bit?
Yeah, he's one of those guys who I think was showing up in some of our mock drafts, like 6th round spots. So he's a more recognizable name. But 2019 he had really good numbers. Probably would have gotten drafted with that type of production. But this past season he was. And the injuries are probably the reason why it was such a drastic drop off that it's hard to just happen like that without legitimate excuse. But he was, not only not good for a prospect, but like he was a below average college rusher this past season. His pressure numbers were well below average. So he had a pretty bad season last year. But there's a reason that he still landed on a roster despite that. It's because before that he did show a lot of promise. So, he's definitely a good wild card, I think, based on what he did before last year.
Yeah, honestly, I don't know much about this guy, so I don't want to mislead anybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of undrafted free agents, the Jets this is the second straight year where they probably did a pretty good job, right, when compared to the rest of the league. They're
getting a lot of rave reviews for Yaboa and Rashid, are I would say the 2 primary guys.
How about Dunn?
Yeah, I got into him a little bit, which I'll talk about in a second, but yeah, he was like the highest undrafted free agent cornerback contract like ever given to UVA.
Record. Yep.
So they have faith in him. I liked what I saw from one game of him that I've watched. Again, preface it, one game. I liked him more than Eccles in the one game I watched of Eccles from Dunn. I don't think he's the best athlete, but I think he's pretty technically refined. I think he moves well in terms of fluidity, but he's not as explosive in a straight line, vertically, stuff like that as Eccles is. But I like his technique a little bit more. Again, I have to dive in a lot deeper, but in terms of Rashid, I want to see why he struggled in 2020 versus 2019. From what he said on the Jets website, he was kicking a little bit more apparently to like four eyes. Like maybe he was working in a little bit more congestion. But I want to see for myself. He's a good athlete. People think he's a freak. He's a little bit tight to me at times. Like he's flexible, like in terms of like moving his shoulders and stuff like that. But like in terms of like getting his hips around to corner, I think he's a little bit tight at times from what I was watching. But I wanna watch more of him. Obviously, I've watched one game. I'll preface it by saying that. So an interesting swing just for the 2019. You want to swing on a guy like that. So I'm happy with it. The next guy, the same guy from Oregon State, Isaiah Dunn. Nani, I know you had to dug into him a little bit because of the contract I just spoke about. So
yeah, it definitely seems like he'll be have a real chance to make the roster based on that guarantee. And really beyond Hall in terms of the outside corners, it feels like it's open season. Austin could definitely be cut. You have Panock competing, Eccles if he's in that mix, and Dunn is probably right there with some of the late round picks in this mix based on that guarantee. So he's definitely got an interesting resume in terms of the numbers. His tackling is pretty good, and across the board, his numbers and coverage are solid. He didn't have the interceptions, but he made a lot of plays on the ball. Like I said, he tackled pretty good, so he kept the yards relatively low. So it'll be interesting to see where he fits into this mix. And like you said, Sabo, the undrafted class overall seems pretty good. And you never want too many to make the team because it probably doesn't say much about your roster if you have a lot of undrafted free agents making the team. But Yeboah, Dunn, Rashid, and then a couple of the O-linemen might have a chance to sneak in. So this is I could definitely see 2, maybe 3 guys making the roster out of this group.
What's interesting is you got to count Hardy too as a corner, even though he's not going to play corner.
Right.
he's making the team.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He's making the team.
Yeah. He'll be on the team, but if he's ever playing defense, they're probably in trouble.
Right. But that kind of, so you throw him into the mix. Okay. You got 4 special teams guys. Yeah. The cornerback position will be interesting because Dunn is not your regular UDFA with that record.
Yeah.
Guaranteed deal. So.
We'll talk about that a lot because like they're just in terms of like that battle. Like there's so many guys right there, like Guidry, Carter,
Valentine.
Yeah, Guidry, Carter. I would say Hall are locks with Hardy. So it's like 4 guys. So you have like multiple guys battling for like that 5th and 6th spot.
Yeah.
Somebody saying that Cam Clark he's hearing that he's not athletic enough for right guard in the system. I don't agree with that. I would say he's better athletically than GVR. And again, this isn't a zone system, even though it's outside zone. Outside zone systems are taught differently. And this is more of a don't necessarily have to reach a guy. Primarily you want to, but if the guy widens, you're going to take him where he's going. So you want athleticism to climb to the second level, things like that. If he does expand that gap, whatever, I'll get into all that stuff. You have to be able to move, but it's not like a crazy amount. You want to be able to cut off linebackers, so that's for sure. More than reach, you want to climb to get linebackers if he does expand. That's really what it's about. Somebody saying I look like Sam Darnold. I heard the baseball guy, Sam Darnold. I guess I don't.
Yeah, I got a chuckle at it now. Nania.
That shocked me. I don't see that at all.
Nani's like more of like a reserve, doesn't really like a guy, but when you hear Nani like audibly laugh, yeah, it must be good. Sam Darnold though, hey. Somebody said that Rashid dropped into coverage more in 2020. That's why his numbers dropped. Based on what Nania said, if his numbers in 2020 were that bad, there was another reason than him just dropping the coverage. He dropped into coverage a little bit in 2019 from what I saw, at least the one game. So someone else asked or said, hey, Blewett, how excited are you for the Nets to lose to the Lakers in the finals? If you're a Knicks fan, at least we'll get there. Not like a first round exit. Any other coach, we would have won 6 games last year. I would say at least 2 more, right? Pats, Broncos, Chargers. Like there were some games in there.
I think the roster was still pretty hard, but
Yeah, but they won 7 games with that same roster pretty much the year before. So I would say with just Salah here last year, you have 4 or 5 wins, and then you add all the talent they have. So I could see 8, 9. People are like, oh, 2 to 9 is a big jump. But I think just Salah alone last year is 2 wins in
and the injuries too. The injuries, and this is the NFL. You could make big jumps. It's not crazy at all.
Yeah. All right. So moving on.
What's so funny?
No, I'm still just because I was looking at your face, but I heard Nania laugh, and then you started like,
that one got to me. That chuckle got to me pretty good. I don't know.
It screwed me up a little bit.
You gotta watch it back. I think my reaction is pretty funny. My eyes were like gaping.
What? Sam Darnold. What was the baseball player? I think that's a little bit more of a fit. I think I've Googled that guy before because obviously here somebody.
Luke Voigt is actually a decent comparison.
Who?
Luke Voigt. Right?
Oh, Luke Voigt. Okay. Yeah, because like obviously if you hear somebody like that somebody's comparing you to, you're like, oh, is this guy like, is he busted? Like I don't know who Luke Voigt is on top of my head. Like obviously we said like, okay, you look like Ellen DeGeneres, like shit, Even though Justin Bieber is compared to him.
You do want to be compared to him.
Okay, cool. So moving on, the next guy, which I know his name is not pronounced. It's Nugar, right? It's how you pronounce it. He said that he came out and said that like because people were obviously just the common joke, and he came out and said like it's Nugur or something like that, whatever. Like it's I think it's Nugar. Nania, the numbers from what I've seen, like from 50, he was like he missed like he's 0 for 2 or 0 for 3 from 50 yards, but he has that interesting video of him on Twitter spinning the ball and kicking it, whatever. Yeah. So is there anything we should? I know he's not your Jose Borgales or your what the hell is the other guy's name, but any hope of him beating out the Anteater and Sam Figgin?
Yeah, I kind of wish they'd make a bigger investment, like draft either McPherson from Florida, although he went pretty early. I think the 5th round. That might have been a little high, but Borgales was still there. He was over 90% last season. But this guy, I'm not even going to try to pronounce his name. I want to hear some announcer say it first.
I'm very sure it's
Nugar. We'll go with Nugar. But he was not great from deep. He was 0 for 2 last. And what's interesting about him is he didn't even play his first 4 seasons of college. He transferred to SMU, and this was the only season he got to play. But 0 for 2 from 50, 12 for 12, under 40. But he also missed 3 extra points. So not terrible, not great. He made the gimmies, but again, also missed a couple extra points. Didn't make any 50-yarders. So I don't know. I hope he beats out Ficken because this is not good.
One of the positions where I'm like, maybe Joe Douglas is smarter than all of us, and he'd rather lose a game by missing a field goal and like, okay, and I get a higher draft pick, and once we're good, he'll actually make an investment because Ficken sucks. Like Nugar, it doesn't look great. You had I don't know. But we'll see, I guess.
I just appreciate his humor with that tweet explanation. I mean, that's not every guy would do that because there's some humor behind that a little bit.
Scott Wilson, Sabo, you beautiful silver fox, you. Well, there's a couple of different people who just popped in the chat.
That gave me a boost to my day. All right.
Somebody said Raiders game. Yeah, we didn't mention the Raiders game in terms of a win. Josh Silver, new X Factor sub here. So excited. I don't know if you got that. Good job. Hey man, again, you're gonna learn some things. And even if you know all the stuff, then maybe you don't have to do as much research yourself. So the next pick or the next UDFA, then we'll get to like some other like tiny things. We're gonna let's start doing a little bit of lightning round because we have about 5 minutes left. The next biggest one people talk about is Tristan Hodge. I think it's Hodge. None of your thoughts on him? It looks like he, from like the snaps I've seen, which are minimal because people are like, oh, well, you watched BYU. When you're watching one player, you are laser focused on that one player for the most part. So I didn't really notice him. I didn't notice him in a bad way though either. So numbers, thoughts on him?
Yeah, his numbers are pretty good. Obviously, he didn't play a great schedule, but only gave up 3 pressures last season. And we've all watched that BYU offensive line. Like you said, none of us could name any of those players other than Christensen, who got drafted. But the clean pockets are always there. The interior pressure is pretty rare, and this guy is a pretty big part of it. So it'll be interesting. Some of these O-linemen, he's probably the best in terms of production of the offensive linemen that they signed undrafted. I think they had 4 of them. But, he's a pretty good pass protector there. So we'll see where he goes.
The backup guards right now are who? It's Feeney. You have Clark, let's say, or ABT. So like maybe he's that third guy. Like you typically carry what 9, 10, 11. Usually I would say about 10. Yeah. So you probably have 5 guards.
And there's also that guy they signed from Tennessee, Corey.
Yeah,
11.
11. Okay.
Yeah, probably 11. 11's Alex Lewis. Well, are we counting Alex Lewis?
I don't see how he's not cut. I don't see it. Like I would rather have GVR as a backup than
Alex Lewis and Griffin are the 2. Right? There's no one else who ranks with those 2 in terms of possible cuts.
Yeah.
And I think GVR played well towards the end of the year, right? Like, and I think watching his film, like of him in Carolina and last year, like he's a below average guard that you don't necessarily want starting, but if he's starting for you, it's not the worst thing in the world if he's your weakest link, Yeah. Is there any other UDFAs you guys want to go over? And I just want to hit like really quick, like 3 favorite picks, 3 least favorite picks, and like some like mini lightning round things.
Yeah,
No,
I think that
we're
rounds
good.
out the notable ones for me.
Yeah, I think we're good. I mean, the only question I would have is of the tackles, who has the best chance to actually play tackle? I have no idea.
There was a guy who I just
Soltez?
no. What's the other? What are the other names?
Ferguson?
Purdue guy, Herman's.
Ferguson, I think, was a guy who I
Air
saw
Force?
that
Air
people
Force.
were talking about a little bit in terms of him maybe being able to do something.
Okay.
But again,
Yeah.
who freaking knows? You know.
Yeah. That's the only question I would have. Yeah.
Somebody says Hodge will be a starter. The passing lanes for Zach were huge on the right side, and he finishes like Becton. Hey, we'll see. I'm hoping it's Cam Clark, to be completely honest. Somebody said, I love the competition we have at right guard. We have competition pretty much everywhere at this point, which is great to say. It really is. Like, we bring up competition in the years past. It's like, between who? Like,
Right.
Andre Roberts is one of your primary backup receivers or one of your starters in some of these games. So let's hit this really quick. We got about 2 minutes. We'll go over by maybe 3 minutes. 3 favorite picks. We'll go Sabo first. Who's your three favorite picks? We're gonna go 1 through 3 with both favorite and least favorite. So prepare yourself.
If I pick Zach Wilson, it's such an easy answer, but I'll do it. I'll go Zach Wilson, Elijah Moore. I'll go easy. Zach Wilson, Elijah Moore, and Carter, the DB.
Oh, okay. That's not that easy. I like his film though too. Nani, what about you?
I'll go with Carter the second, Carter and Vera Tucker.
I'm going so I went easy at the first 2. AVT. Gotta love that trade.
And that's not slaying Zach
you know
Wilson. I'm just trying to be unique. I obviously would take
Yeah,
it, but
of
I'm just
course
trying.
I'd pick AVT too, but
we expect that. Louis Pineda, you are very late to the party if you just got here. We're about to wrap up, but yeah, AVT, just the balls to trade up. We've been talking about building on the offensive line. Douglas, 2 first-round picks, 2 years in a row. Offensive lineman is fantastic. Elijah Moore, after that film review, he's my number 2. The film is great. It is really good. I have questions about him versus, press, and can he hold his line and square cuts? Like, there's some things like that I want to see that I highlighted in the article and in my film review, but overall still really like it. 3rd, Hamza Nasruddin. I really like that pick late in the round. 3 least favorite. I'll go first in this. I'll throw it to you guys after. I'll say it with you first. 3 least favorite in a row. Eccles is my least favorite pick. Don't really like what I've seen so far. Sherwood is my second. I like some of it, but I have massive questions about him in terms of athletic ability. And then I don't really have a third that I don't really like, but I guess Marshall, I guess, but I like the swing, to be completely honest. So I'm kind of reaching there. So Saba, what are your 3 least favorite?
I'll go Sherwood number 1 because I know what his game is as opposed to some of the other guys. I'll take your word for it on Eccles. And
the third one's hard because I think there was only 2.
It's tough to find 3 bad ones, to be honest. I'll go Marshall too. I'll stick with you.
Can I? I'm gonna change my third to I'm gonna say one of those picks, one of Eccles' pick. I'm gonna say Eccles, Sherwood, and then the third being that Eccles, the pick wasn't a kicker.
Okay.
Yeah. It's hard for me to pick 3 I don't like. I'll definitely put Eccles in there, just because I feel like they had already knocked out cornerback as much as they need to that point, and he doesn't really. He's a little bit too much of a tweener to really be worth it at that point. Doesn't have the. Like Marshall gives you that upside in terms of athleticism. Panock is a great scheme fit and also has great tools. He's just sort of bouncing around there, and he didn't have a good season last year. So I'll go with that one. I'll follow you guys on Sherwood just because of the lack of athleticism. And like that's probably it in terms of complaints. Like, I like the Marshall pick. But I guess if I had to pick a third, I'd throw him there. Say maybe pick a kicker instead. But his athleticism is exciting. So I
mean, listen, it's frustrating. I want to have stuff to be angry about, to be mad about, to kill the GM. It's just, I love doing it with McCagnon. I did it often. But
somebody in the chat asked, what are your 3 favorite moments of the offseason? We're not going to do that because we have like 2 seconds. But Scott Wilson had a really good response. Wilson, number 1, Wilson's giving Douglas full control. Number 2, signing Saleh and drafting Wilson. I don't know if I disagree.
I would say for me, hiring Saleh, signing Carl Lawson, and trading Sam Darnold.
I'll go making the decision to trade Darnold, changing the hierarchy within the system, giving Douglas full control, and then trading Sam Darnold. I'll go making the decision to trade Darnold, changing the hierarchy within the system, giving Douglas full control, and then trading Sam Darnold. I'll go making the decision to trade Darnold, changing the hierarchy within the system, giving Douglas full control, And obviously Douglas will do the right thing and not screw it up and give Saleh full control over the staff. You need that hierarchy. Number 3, the injury prevention program that they put together.
I am 1,000% on cue with you right there. Yeah.
That's an under the radar. That stuff doesn't get the attention it deserves, yet it's so big to football programs like, high schools, just having the facility, certain things like that. You don't realize how big it is until it comes.
Number 4, the documentary that's coming in June.
Yeah.
Quickly, how many, lightning round, just give me a number, maybe discuss it for a sentence. How many starters do you think are from this draft? I think we're all going to agree. Wilson, AVT, Carter.
I think Carter's going to start, and obviously he won't start to begin.
I'm saying majority of snaps. I'm going to say 3. I'm not sure about more yet, though. So I would say at least 3, maybe 4, 5, 6, depending if no, let's say 4 is a lock, because then you have one of Sherwood or Hamza, I think, are playing.
Assuming Cashman gets hurt.
So I think they're looking at 4 or 5 starters from the draft.
Yeah, I think good. At least 3 is the obvious minimum. Probably 4 with Carter. Carter the second has a shot, and then you're almost not definitely Cashman could win, but one of those 2 safety linebackers will probably start. So you could have 6. I would say at least 4, maybe up to 6.
Yeah, I think that's a good range.
Which would be crazy. That is, it partially because this roster was bad.
It says something about the roster,
but it's still more so about having the top 3 guys than the rest of the roster.
They have a ton to do still, but I think we all really like where they're going. Bless Austin, somebody asked if he really starting. I severely doubt it. Quickly, last question before we close it out. Sabo, be ready for us to close out, because last time we were sitting here for 10 dead seconds, we were like awkward in the chat. If it's like a name or 2 that comes to the top of your head in this draft that you're mad that we missed on.
Go ahead, Nania.
I would say I love the Moore pick, but I really love the idea of taking Tevin Jenkins and just completely rounding out the offensive line. So that's what came to mind first, but Elijah Moore is so good. So yeah, I'm not really complaining about it.
Yeah, I'm not really fuming at anything either, to be honest. Like, and McCagnon had me fume so many times. These last 2 drafts, not so much. The kicker is a good one. The kicker is a good one, so I'll go with that one.
Yeah, I would say like there's like 3 who I really wanted at certain points. Ben Mason, didn't get him. I really wanted him. Really wanted Brevin Jordan. I forget who we took right around there. He was floating down there. I'm gonna say Borgalis or whatever the other guy's name, McPherson, that Nania was talking about. So closing thoughts, Sabo first. We'll go to you, and then like I said, we'll be back in 2 weeks, maybe a month-ish of time. So Sabo, what's your last words?
Jets fans, be excited, because it's just, I know this is the season of hope. Everyone gets excited every time of this year, but football's about the process. And Douglas and Saleh, they value the process, and the process has changed. So just be excited. That's all I could say.
Nani?
I guess for me, I would just say look back at my reaction when someone said that you look like Sam Darnold. It was great. It was great.
I'll go back and watch it. Somebody said Cox. I really love Cox. Cox would have fit perfectly. I wanted Cox too. But then looking into him a little bit, somebody talking about he's a little bit soft. I don't think it's necessarily a solid guy, to be completely honest. Appreciate everybody for listening. We will be back very, very shortly. I will be back in a couple of days with a ton of film reviews. Next one being Carter. Nania has articles out every day. Sabo is pumping out some stuff as well. Subscribe. That's my last word. Subscribe to the channel. We got a ton coming, and once the team gets better, you're gonna want to know about these players. Don't be like everybody else and just hear the same old shit recycled throughout everybody's mouths without actually knowing what to talk about. So subscribe. That's my last
channel
word.
And the website.
It's a cup of it's 2 cups of coffee a month. That's all it is.
Mm-hmm.
So appreciate you guys, and we'll see you again soon. Subscribe to the channel. We got a ton coming, and once the team gets better, you're gonna want to know about these. I hate hearing my own voice. Else and just hear the same old shit.
I do too. I never listen to my own stuff.
Yeah. So I actually know what to talk about. So, but now I got to go back and watch your reaction. It's a cup of it's 2 cups of coffee a month. That's all it is. Mm-hmm. So appreciate you guys.
We're still on.
See you soon. I don't know if we are. Who cares?
Hey, everyone.
All right, we're off.